Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the kind of heat that makes your bones sweat. You're in ancient Persia, long before air conditioners were a thing, and the desert sun is doing its absolute worst. The earth has baked itself into a stiff crust, cicadas buzz like someone left a kettle on, and the wind, when it bothers to show up, feels like someone opened the door to a clay oven. You're trudging along a narrow dirt path, sandals half melting to the ground, and it's the sort of afternoon that makes you question every life choice you've ever made. There's a flicker of movement ahead. Low mud brick walls, soft brown and rounded like scoops of ice cream melting too slowly. These aren't ruins, they're homes, and they're alive with quiet life. A woman in a simple robe disappears behind a curtain made of woven reeds. A boy plays barefoot in the shade, half singing to himself. No one looks like they're dying of heat stroke, which, frankly, feels like a miracle right now. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still awake enough to move your fingers, drop your local time and where you're listening from. I always love knowing how far this sleepy caravan travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step a little closer to the nearest house. There's something about it. Its walls, made of compacted mud and straw, somehow feel cooler. You lean close. The surface is rough but not unpleasant. It smells of earth, faintly baked but still somehow damp. The sun presses down on your back like a heavy hand, but near this wall, there's a gentle reprieve. Not a dramatic, "Oh wow, it's freezing here," kind of difference, but enough to make you pause. Enough to make you want to sit in its shadow for a very long time. A cat strolls by, tail flicking, and slips inside an open doorway. You follow. Inside, it's a different world. The air isn't cold, but it's not stifling either. It's as if the house itself has learned how to breathe. The walls are thick. A breeze, soft, but definitely there, whispers in from a narrow, slitted window near the ceiling. Your body, still coated in sweat from the walk, sighs in relief. You sit on a worn cushion, cross-legged, and listen. There's no air conditioner. No fan. No humming machinery, no flickering lights. Just silence, stone, and a structure that seems smarter than you are. This is ancient Persia, and you're sitting in a building that, against all odds, is cooler than the outside because someone over 2,000 years ago looked at mud and said, "You know what? This can work." And somehow they were right. Out the window, the city simmers. This might be Yazd or Ray or one of a dozen other desert cities that clung to survival with intelligence instead of brute force. The architecture here isn't just aesthetic, it's tactical. Every choice, from how high the ceiling is to where the window cuts in, was made to trick the air into helping. Above, a wind catcher sways slightly in the breeze. You'll learn more about those later. For now, it's enough to know it's doing its job, grabbing whatever whiff of movement the desert allows and pushing it downward, into the serene space onto your face. People here don't just survive summer. They've engineered it into submission. It's a kind of magic. Or, more accurately, it's the opposite. It's thousands of years of observation, of trial and error, of human stubbornness meeting natural fury and deciding to dance with it rather than fight. You look around the room. The floor's packed dirt covered with woven mats. The walls curve slightly at the edges, not just pretty but intentional, helping to funnel hot air up and out through small vents. There's a jug of water in the corner. It's clay and it's damp on the outside. That's no accident either. Evaporative cooling, they'd call it centuries later. But the people who made this didn't need terms. They just knew that water plus airflow equals chill. You lean back. Through a distant doorway, you hear someone laugh. Maybe they're sipping pomegranate juice. Maybe they're just enjoying the shade. Either way, they're not sweating through their robes. And you sitting here aren't either. Well, okay, you're still sweating. But less. And in this heat, that feels like a miracle. Historians still argue whether the roots of Persian cooling methods came from Mesopotamian beginnings or developed independently in Iran's harsh terrain. But standing here, okay, sitting cross-legged and gently panting, you get the sense that it doesn't really matter. What matters is that it works. And that it's worked for so long. It's not just buildings, either. The Persians didn't stop at mud brick walls and clever windows. They reimagined entire cities as climate-controlled labyrinths. Places that made air move, water sing, and shade stretch like a living thing. And you're going to walk through all of it, just not too fast, because the heat outside hasn't gone anywhere. And you probably won't survive this journey if you rush it. So you wait, and breathe, and let your body catch up with your curiosity. This was just your first step into a cooler world made of clay, cunning, and quiet. And there's a long way to go. But don't worry, you'll stay in the shade. You wake, or maybe you never quite fell asleep, to the soft tick of dust settling in the shadow of that mudbrick wall. The air inside still holds its quiet coolness, like it's been holding its breath since the moment you arrived. Outside, the sun's climbed even higher, its light now bouncing off the hard earth like heat from a forge. And yet this home endures. You stand up, reluctantly, and step outside again. The wall greets you once more, wide and gentle. Its surface warm but never scorching. It's built not of stone, not of marble or tile or anything grand like that. Just mud, clay, straw, and time. And still, it shelters. This is where it starts to dawn on you. In ancient Persia, buildings weren't just shelters from the elements. They were machines. Silent, self-regulating, self-cooling machines crafted by hands that understood the language of the desert better than any modern architect. And the best part? It all begins with mud. You follow a narrow street, winding between low homes with thick walls and high parapets. Every few steps, there's a small opening, maybe a recessed alcove, maybe a barely there vent cut just so into a shadowed corner. The smell of baked earth and straw lingers. The street smells like a potter's kiln left to cool. Then you hear it, thwop, thwop, squelch. You peer around a corner and see them, 3 workers knee-deep in a slurry pit. They're mixing something the color of hot chocolate pudding. One of them heaves a basket of chopped straw into the mix, another shovels it around with a flat wooden paddle. Their feet do most of the work, stamping, twisting, dragging. You lean in closer. It's hypnotic, almost dance-like. Like they've been doing it their entire lives. Which probably they have. What they're making isn't just mud. It's adobe, sun-dried, not kiln-fired, packed tight with just enough straw to bind it all together like nature's fiberglass. It's light enough to lift, thick enough to last centuries, and insulating in a way no modern drywall will ever be. The straw holds moisture when the air is dry and releases it slowly, creating a subtle, natural temperature buffer that adjusts throughout the day. It's a kind of alchemy: dirt, water, straw, and sun. That's it. No motors. No wires. Just patience and skill. Historians still debate whether Persian adobe techniques originated with nomadic clay shelter traditions or if they were adopted from earlier urban civilizations like the Elamites. You know what's funny? The people stomping mud here couldn't care less. They shape the earth like sculptors. One man packs the mix into a wooden mold. He flips it, taps it twice, and lifts, leaving behind a perfect brick. He lines it up beside dozens of others, all drying in neat rows like sleeping loaves of bread. By afternoon, they'll be baked hard by the sun. In a week, they'll be part of someone's wall. You follow him as he carries a stack toward a half-finished house. Its bones are already up, thick adobe walls, the beginning of a vaulted ceiling, and a short, curved entryway that turns inward, not out. You notice it doesn't face the sun. Almost no buildings here do. Everything is angled, calculated. Even chaos here has geometry. Inside the unfinished structure, the temperature already feels lower. The bricks, still slightly damp, breathe moisture into the air. You run a hand along the wall, rough, cool, satisfying. The air holds a hint of clay and sweetness, like wet pottery. It's not just the material that cools you. It's the way it's arranged. The walls are massively thick, sometimes 3 feet deep. Why? Because the thicker the wall, the more heat it absorbs before it lets any of it through. During the day, the outside surface bakes while the inside stays tolerably cool. At night, the wall radiates that trapped heat back out as the air cools. It's like a thermal sponge. You pause. A nearby mason gestures to the ceiling, an archway of mud brick meticulously arranged in a soft dome. No angles, no beams, just curves. Arches push weight outward, not downward. Less stress, less cracking, and the shape naturally encourages air to rise. Heat, being shy and floaty, loves to climb. So as it rises into the dome, cooler air slides in to take its place. Passive airflow powered by physics and patience. The mason points at a small niche near the floor. It's not decorative. It's a sardab, a subterranean vent that connects to a lower chamber or corridor, sometimes to an entire tunnel system. You'll explore that in more detail later, but for now, just know that this little mouth in the wall is about to whisper cold air into the room all summer long, and you begin to understand, these aren't just homes. They're carefully tuned instruments, built not just to exist, but to perform. There's no blueprint. Everything is passed down by doing, watching, correcting. That old guy with the donkey cart? He's probably built more houses with his bare hands than you've ever lived in. He doesn't carry a ruler. He just knows. In the corner of the construction site, there's a family waiting, 3 kids, a tired mother, a jug of pomegranate molasses wrapped in cloth. They'll move in next week. For now, they sit in the growing shadow of their future walls, heads bowed, grateful. Because they know this house will shield them not just from the sun, but from the world, and it'll do it with mud. You walk again, past rows of completed homes, and start to see the patterns. Entrances recessed into shadow. Tiny upper windows, high and narrow. Low thresholds, high ceilings. Courtyards that open to the sky but never face the sun. Every design choice has one purpose. Kulth, a real term, by the way. The opposite of warmth. You're not just protected here. You're cradled. The idea that a building can hold back the worst of nature without resisting it, that's not modern. That's Persian. And it's very, very old. Back inside another finished home, you sit beneath a tailor, a kind of open porch facing a shaded garden. The breeze moves lazily through it, touching your face like a sigh. Around you, the bricks gleam faintly from decades of hands rubbing against them. A small boy brings you a bowl of something. You sniff it. Yogurt with mint and crushed ice. Ice? In this heat? Where did that come from? That's a story for later. For now, you let the shadow cradle you. You let the brick wall breathe against your back. And you let the heat stay outside where it belongs. Because inside these ancient walls, the air belongs to you. You wake to silence. Not the kind that rings empty, but the thick, restful quiet that comes when the world knows how to slow down. The mudbrick walls still hold their gentle chill. Somewhere in the distance, a donkey brays and the breeze shifts a curtain of reeds by the door, sending a flicker of light across the floor. You rise, stretch, and step back outside. The heat greets you instantly, coiled and waiting like a sun-soaked cat. But you're not worried. You know now that shade is never far in this place, and not just any shade, but shade with strategy. Shade with science baked into its soul. The street curves gently, hugging the forms of the buildings like a ribbon. There are no straight lines here. No wide-open boulevards for the sun to barrel down. The layout is deliberate, narrow alleys with tall walls, arranged to throw shadows over each other like lazy dancers. You raise your hand and feel the sharp line between light and cool. That's not an accident. That's ancient planning. You turn a corner, and just ahead, a courtyard. Still, serene, and just slightly cooler. The moment you cross its threshold, the air changes. It presses against your skin like a sigh, soft, forgiving, whispering that you've stepped into a pocket of calm. And in a place like this, calm is always colder. The space is walled in on all 4 sides. There's a shallow pool in the center, and beside it, 3 clay jugs standing like sentries. The water inside them hums with freshness, and you can't help but kneel, press your palms against the side of the nearest one. The clay is damp. Not by accident. It's a zaire, a porous jug designed to let water evaporate slowly. And in doing so, it cools the liquid within. Evaporation requires energy, and that energy is drawn from the heat around it. This principle is so effective that in some cases, water stored like this can drop several degrees below ambient temperature. All without electricity. All without sound. You fill a cup and sip. It's not icy, but it's cold enough. Cold enough to make your shoulders unclench. You glance up at the buildings ringing the courtyard. They don't have balconies or open windows. Instead, they have mashrabia's delicate wooden latticework screens that let air pass but break up sunlight into soft, golden flickers. You remember reading once that these patterns weren't just decorative, they were mathematical. Designed to maximize airflow while reducing heat. Your modern apartment has smart vents and tinted glass. But this lattice? This is smarter. A woman walks across the courtyard with a bowl of fruit, dates, apricots, tiny pale green melons you've never seen before. She sets them by the pool in the dappled light. Not because it's picturesque, though it is, but because it's the coolest spot in the entire courtyard. Directly above the underground channel. You pause. Beneath your feet, you realize the ground isn't just dirt. It's part of a living system. A canal runs below this very spot. A silent tunnel carved through bedrock and gravel, delivering water from distant mountains like a message whispered through time. You'll go down there later, but for now, you focus on what's above. The water in the pool isn't moving. There's no fountain, no gurgling. It's completely still. And yet, it's cooling the air all around it. It's easy to miss just how clever this is. Stillness matters. A moving fountain would sparkle in the sun, true. It might even sing a little. But it would also agitate the air, stirring the heat instead of settling it. This isn't a place for drama. It's a place for relief. The pool, quiet and low, invites heat downward. The surrounding walls trap the shadow, and together they form a cool sink, a subtle low-pressure zone that draws hot air out of surrounding rooms and lets the cooled air rest right here in the courtyard. You're standing in the heart of a passive cooling system designed centuries before thermometers, using nothing but intuition, trial and error, and a deep respect for what air wants to do. And here's the kicker, it works better because it doesn't try to overpower nature. It works because it listens to it. You step through a side arch and find yourself in a long corridor with no doors. Only openings high above, narrow and cut like inverted keyholes. The air moves here. Not fast. Just insistently. You tilt your head and feel it brush your cheek, drawn from the shaded courtyard toward another space you haven't seen yet. It's like the entire house is breathing, and in a way, it is. Historians still argue whether these corridor systems, designed to funnel cool air from one room to another, were first implemented in palace architecture or peasant homes. Either way, what matters is that they're everywhere. And once you start to notice them, you see the pattern. Every room you step into is slightly cooler than the one before. Not frigid, not dramatic, just manageable, pleasant, livable. And in this climate, that's not just luxury. It's survival. You pause beside another clay vessel, this one taller and narrower, its neck wrapped in soaked linen. A breeze catches it just right, and the air around it drops again by a whisper's degree. This isn't a trick. It's evaporative cooling, performed 100 different ways throughout a single home. Your tour guide, an elderly man with a white beard and sun-brown skin, smiles at your obvious wonder. He taps the side of the vessel and says something in Persian. You don't catch every word, but you hear two things clearly. Water breathes, and he's right. You head back outside, and suddenly the rest of the city makes more sense. Domes that look like they're built upside down, concave, not convex. Why? Because the shape doesn't trap heat, it releases it. Alleyways that feel like wind tunnels. Why? Because they're aligned with the seasonal wind patterns. Doorways that don't line up. Why? Because the breeze gets confused, swirls, and leaves behind a puff of coolness. None of this was random. It's art. But it's also science. The city itself is a giant cooling system. And you? You're a happy drop of sweat rolling down its skin, evaporating slowly in the right breeze. You walk a bit farther and find a shaded corner where children sit playing with pebbles. They're not flushed or tired. Just focused. You squat down next to them and one of them hands you a flat piece of marble, warm to the touch but not scalding. The shade keeps it gentle. Nearby, their grandmother waves at you from a doorway. Behind her, a stack of fruits sits in bowls, kept out of the sun not by refrigeration but by clever architecture. Deep alcoves, breathable clay walls, quiet air, and somehow everything is just comfortable. You lean back against the wall, eyes fluttering. You've stepped into the science of stillness. Into a world where cool isn't cold, it's calm. It's controlled. It's coaxed gently from the very materials under your feet. And the best part? You haven't even seen the wind catchers yet. You stir as a shadow passes across your face. Overhead, the light shifts, longer, softer now. The sun's begun its slow descent, but the heat hasn't let go. It still clings to the stones in the alley, to your robes, to the very air itself. But there's a breeze now, not strong, just a faint kiss on your forehead. Like the sky remembering how to breathe. You look up and there it is. Rising from the rooftops like a proud sentinel is a tower. Not tall like a castle turret. Not ornate like a minaret. Just there. Quiet. Simple. Angular. You wouldn't notice it if you weren't paying attention. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's watching the wind. And the wind is listening. You walk slowly toward it, craning your neck. The tower stands maybe 20, 30 feet above the roofline. Openings cut into its upper sides, sometimes 4, sometimes 8, depending on the wind, the design, the budget, the ambition. Each opening faces a cardinal direction. Some wide, some narrow, some angled like mouths caught mid-whisper. You've found your first badger, or, if you prefer the modern tongue, a wind catcher. The word sounds dramatic, but it's honest. That's exactly what this tower is built to do, catch the wind. Lure it, trap it, bend it gently down into the spaces below. It doesn't force anything. It doesn't blow. It invites. You climb a narrow stairwell carved into the building beside it. Each step is steep, uneven, the kind of climb that makes your knees think twice. But eventually you reach the roof, and the air shifts again. Cooler now, stronger. You feel the breeze skimming over the city, lazy, wide, wandering. And you see, at last, the landscape, rooftops dotted with these strange towers. Some tall and slender, some wide and square, some crowned with domes like inverted bowls. It looks like a city of periscopes all quietly scanning the sky. From up here, you finally understand. This isn't some one-off idea. This is a system. A network of towers each tuned to catch even the weakest whisper of air and funnel it into the homes beneath. Not one home has a fan. Not one hums with power. But the air is moving. Gently. Constantly. You approach the edge of the tower. Look inside. It's hollow, a shaft plunging downward into darkness. And at the very base, a room, shaded, occupied, comfortably cool. You imagine the air sliding down the shaft, pulled by gravity and pressure, past damp clay walls, brushing across skin and tile, then exhaling out another shaft on the opposite side. No motors. No plugs. Just physics. It all hinges on the principle of pressure differential. Hot air rises. Cool air sinks. You've known this since you were 5 and stood on a chair to touch the ceiling. But here, in the heart of ancient Persia, someone figured out how to build architecture around that idea. The openings of the badger face the prevailing wind. In Yazd, for instance, they're often angled to catch the dry, persistent breezes from the northeast. Once inside the shaft, the wind flows downward, often passing over water, either a pool, a jug, or, if you're lucky, the top of a cannet tunnel. That contact with water cools the air even more. Now the cool, dense air spills into the home's central space, pushing the hot, lighter air upward and out through another opening. It's a loop, a gentle, whispering loop. You lean into the opening, feel it against your cheek. It's not dramatic. It's not a gust. But it's constant, reliable, like the house itself is sighing through a straw. You smile, then laugh, because you realize you're standing inside a reverse chimney. And it works beautifully. Historians still argue over who first designed the wind catcher. Some say it began in Persia around 3,000 years ago. Others insist that early examples appeared in ancient Egypt or even in the Indus Valley. But in Iran, especially in cities like Yazd, the badger became more than an architectural trick, it became an identity. You descend from the roof and step back inside. In the room beneath the tower, the air is noticeably cooler than the courtyard you left earlier. There's no furniture here, just mats, cushions, maybe a low table. But the breeze moves lazily through the space, ruffling the edges of a cotton curtain like it's playing with a pet. You sit. The silence is rich. There's a small opening at floor level, you notice, no more than a handspan across. Another vent. This one leads downward into the deeper parts of the house. The badger doesn't just cool this room. It feeds the whole home like a great, slow lung. You start to notice patterns. Badgers above kitchens? Smaller. More aggressive in airflow to draw out smoke and heat. Badgers above bedrooms? Wider, softer, sometimes paired with pools to cool the air even further. Badgers above sardabs, those underground chambers you'll visit soon, are the quietest. They're just there to keep the air moving. Just enough to prevent staleness. Just enough to make you forget it's summer. It's not just about staying alive in the heat. It's about comfort. Pleasure, even. And as strange as it sounds, that makes all the difference. You explore more rooftops. One tower has 8 openings, each fitted with shutters made of woven palm and linen. Adjustable, portable. You watch a man climb a small ladder and tweak them, watching the direction of the breeze with a fluttering ribbon. It's like adjusting the sails on a ship, a wind ship, drifting through stone. Another tower has small ceramic pots embedded into the shaft. They look decorative, but you ask and the homeowner grins. They slow the wind, he says. Make it smooth, not sharp. You touch one. It's glazed with something faintly sweet-smelling, maybe rosewater. Maybe pomegranate sap. You sniff. The air carries the scent. Fragrance engineering. They were making essential oil diffusers before essential oils had names. You watch a family gather for tea under their badger's shadow. They barely glance up. For them, it's normal. For you, it's genius. You wonder what it would be like to grow up in a home that knew how to breathe. One that didn't need a thermostat or ductwork or arguments about setting the AC to 72 versus 74. Just walls, wind, water, and wisdom. And suddenly your own modern apartment feels noisy, artificial, loud even when it's quiet. Because up here, in the shadow of the wind catcher, nothing hums. Nothing buzzes. And yet the air moves, soft, reliable, almost kind. You spend the rest of the afternoon watching shadows migrate across rooftops, their long fingers stretching, bending, crawling down the mud brick walls like they're alive. The worst heat has passed, just barely, but your skin still prickles with it. You wipe your forehead and follow a narrow street that curves around a well, then dips. You notice something now you didn't earlier, strips of colored cloth tied to wooden rods along the roofs. They flutter in different directions, some steady, some barely twitching. And standing on one of the rooftops, arms crossed, is a man watching those strips like they're oracle bones. He doesn't speak when you approach. Just lifts one hand and gestures to the wind. It's subtle. You wouldn't have felt it if you weren't paying attention. But he is. His fingers rise, twitching lightly in the current. He walks a few steps, waits, then mutters to himself, turning slightly. You realize what he's doing. He's mapping the breeze. He nods at you now and points toward a nearby tower. Its half-built wooden scaffolding curled around its base like a nest. The openings aren't cut yet. They're still figuring out which direction the wind favors this season. That's the thing about badgers, they don't get built on instinct alone. They're tailored. Each one tuned to its spot like a string on a harp. You follow him to the tower in progress. He places a bit of soot-blackened string into the frame and lets it dangle. The moment it twitches, he watches how it moves. A frown, then a slow smile. He steps back and marks the clay with a thumbprint. It's the breeze whisperers like him, men with no degrees, no charts, just patience and the inherited instincts of 100 summers who help shape the city's breath. They know when the wind sulks, when it flares, when it hides for days. And more importantly, they know how to coax it back. He hands you a strip of cloth. It's warm from his pocket, soft and fraying at the edge. He nods. You hold it up. At first, nothing. Then the faintest flutter. He grins again, proud. You've read the wind. Of course, this isn't modern meteorology. There are no forecasts here. No apps telling you when the breeze will come. But there is memory. And memory goes far in a place where time moves like molasses under the sun. You descend again into the city's lower streets, your cloth still in hand like a totem. People glance at it, nodding politely as if they understand what you're up to. And they probably do. You stop outside a small home, modest, crooked, but clearly lived in. Above it, a badger towers like a watchful guardian. But this one's different. You squint at the shaft and see what looks like a kind of wind baffle inside. Narrow shelves made of clay curve inward like ribs, forcing the air to slow, to cool, to spiral gently as it descends. It's not just about catching wind. It's about training it. Inside, a man invites you in. He's a craftsman, a weaver, judging by the giant wooden loom in the corner. And he tells you how he redesigned his badger after a dust storm ruined a year's worth of fabric. Too much wind can be just as bad, he says. It needs to arrive like a friend, not a fight. You sip sweet tea, let your shoulders rest, and listen. His badger, you learn, was angled deliberately away from the strongest seasonal winds, not because he didn't want the breeze, but because he needed consistency. If the wind slammed down too fast, it stirred the dust and unseated the threads on his loom. So, he built a diffuser into the tower, a set of slanted clay plates, each designed to redirect and soften the flow. It's brilliant. It's ancient. And it's working. His loom hums softly as he weaves. The air moves gently through the room, rustling the fringe of a half-made rug. No dust. No sting. Just the breath of the city, trained to behave. Historians still debate whether these baffle-style wind catchers were widespread or hyper-local solutions developed by specific trades like his. Some think they were just lucky accidents of construction. Others think they reflect a deep, intuitive understanding of airflow that modern engineers are only beginning to appreciate. Either way, the result is the same, an air conditioner made of clay and care. You thank him, bow slightly, and step back outside. The cloth strip in your hand flutters again. You glance at the rooftops. More men are watching the wind now. Some adjusting reeds, others fixing shutters on the badgers. You see a teenage boy clambering up a ladder to hang a piece of polished metal inside the tower, probably to reflect heat outward while letting air in. Every movement, every adjustment, is part of a dialogue with the sky. And in a place where the sun is both blessing and beast, this dialogue matters. You step around a corner and into a small plaza. It's surrounded by homes, each topped with at least one badger. But what catches your eye is the centerpiece, a public wind catcher. Bigger, broader, built into a stone structure with benches all around it. An oasis for people who don't have one at home. You sit and wait, and then it comes. The soft exhale of air descending like a lullaby. It touches your arms, your neck, the back of your knees. The other people here, an old woman, two boys playing dice, a mother with a fussy toddler, hardly seem to notice it. But you do. It's like standing under a giant whisper. And somehow it smells faintly of water and dust and safety. You lean back against the stone. Above you, the wind catcher opens to the sky. Sunlight glints off something inside. Perhaps a wet cloth hung just out of sight. Perhaps nothing. Maybe it's just the clever shape, the angle, the knowledge passed down for centuries. You don't need to know every detail, because the result is the same. You're sitting in a handmade miracle, and it's not even trying to impress you. It's just doing its job. You open your eyes to darkness, but not the kind that feels hollow. This is cool, deep, earthen darkness, the kind that cradles you. You're underground now. Not by accident. You took a turn somewhere, maybe after the plaza, and descended a stairway carved from stone, then clay, then stone again. It narrowed as it went. Your footsteps echoed softly. And now here you are, in the underbelly of a Persian city where the Khanats whisper secrets older than kings. You breathe in. The air is wet, somehow, but not oppressive. It's not humid like a tropical jungle, it's just full. Full of something ancient. Below you, you hear it, water. Not rushing, trickling, controlled. Constant, polite murmur. You kneel, run your hand across the stone wall, and feel the cool seep through your fingertips. The silence is broken only by the occasional plop of a droplet falling from the curved ceiling to the channel below. You reach for a clay lantern, its wick still smoldering, and walk along the narrow ledge beside the water. This is no sewer. No natural spring. This is the work of generations. A tunnel dug by hand starting in the distant mountains where snowmelt gathers, sloping ever so gently toward the city. Less than 1 degree of incline, so subtle it could take days for the water to reach you. But it does. Because they made sure of it. The Khanate is one of the oldest, quietest revolutions in history. You're walking inside a river that was never meant to be seen. Above ground, water is chaos. It evaporates. It spills. It floods or disappears when the sun gets greedy. But down here, it's protected. The water can flow undisturbed, unspoiled from miles away. No pumps. No machines. Just gravity and grit. The ceiling arches low. You duck. A bat stirs somewhere in the shadows, then disappears. You hear nothing else. Just the slow movement of cool water in stone. You wonder how deep you are. 5 meters? 15? It varies. Some Khanats plunge nearly 100 feet below ground at their source before rising gently toward the city. To build one took years, sometimes generations. Men would dig vertical shafts every 20 or 30 meters, dropping down like needles to the tunnel below. From up top, the landscape would look like the dotted spine of a sleeping dragon. And the danger? Ever present. Collapses. Suffocation. Gas pockets. Some workers tied ropes to their ankles so they could be pulled out if they passed out from bad air. Others carved prayers into the stone as they worked. You brush a fingertip across a shallow engraving. Just a line of poetry, maybe, or a name. Historians still argue whether Khanats were a uniquely Persian innovation or if similar systems emerged in parallel in Egypt or even ancient China. But here, in this tunnel, it feels like something only the desert could birth. You come to a chamber, a widening in the tunnel where the ceiling rises and the air feels noticeably colder. This is a sardab, a sort of subcellar, built right above the Khanate channel. It's not a coincidence. These rooms were designed to steal that subterranean chill. Homes and even marketplaces would be built above them, letting the cold rise gently into the spaces above. The opposite of a sauna. You climb a small ladder and emerge into one such room. It's dark but not suffocating. The air presses gently against your skin like a cool cloth. There's a jug of water here set on a brick platform above the tunnel. It's damp with condensation. You pour a cup. Drink. The water tastes like stone and snowmelt and patience. A woman sits in the corner weaving baskets. Her feet are bare. She glances at you, then returns to her work. She's not startled. This chamber has always been a place of passing strangers, of shifting air. You nod. She nods. Nothing more is needed. You realize now how the Khanate isn't just about water. It's about air. The whole system, tunnels, shafts, chambers, forms a network that breathes. The cool of the water pulls warm air down through vents. Badgers up above tug that air upward again, creating a gentle, reliable circulation that doesn't just cool the home, it refreshes it. It's a living system, and it's been functioning, in places, for over 2,000 years. You walk back toward the stairwell, your steps echoing off the rounded walls. Along the way, you see alcoves carved into the stone storage niches. Some contain food. Others hold cloth sealed in clay jars. This underground world isn't just a tunnel, it's a pantry, a fridge, a hallway, and a sanctuary all at once. When you climb back to the surface, you emerge inside someone's home. They barely notice you. An old man lounges on a low bench, eyes closed. A jug sweats beside him. The floor beneath his bed is cooler than the air above. You know why now. You step outside. The sun hasn't moved much, but the air feels different, less cruel. You understand the rhythm now. Sun above, water below, towers for the wind, tunnels for the cool. Every element pulled into cooperation. And the brilliance? It's that the Kanat never announces itself. No plume of mist, no dripping pipe, no hum of machinery, just presence. It's the thing you never knew you needed, and now you can't imagine the city without it. You pass a man lifting a clay lid in the street, a maintenance shaft for the Kanat. He dips a bucket down, draws water, and fills a trough for goats waiting nearby. You watch the water slosh gently, quietly. The goats lap it up gratefully. The man nods to you, then replaces the lid. The street returns to silence. Just beneath your feet, the water continues its journey. Across rock, through darkness, guided only by a slope so gentle it feels like belief. And above you a breeze stirs. You smile, because you know where it came from. You wake to the sound of clinking glass. Not harsh, rhythmic, purposeful. You open your eyes slowly, adjusting to the golden pre-dawn light filtering through a lattice screen above your head. It spills across the floor in honeycomb patterns, softening every hard edge of the room. You blink once, twice, then sit up. Somewhere outside, someone is moving ice. And that doesn't make sense. Not here. Not in this dry desert landscape. Not after the sun spent all day roaring down on rooftops like a furnace. But then you remember, this is Persia. And in Persia, ice doesn't melt unless you let it. You slip into your sandals, stretch, and pad softly toward the sound. You pass through a narrow hallway, the clay walls still cool from the night air. Another breeze snakes through the corridor behind you, drawn gently from one shaded window to the next, like the city exhaling in its sleep. Outside, the morning is just beginning. Birds circle the rooftops, and the city stirs like a lazy lion. And there, in a shadowed alley beside the garden wall, a man is sliding a block of ice from one clay box to another. His hands are steady, practiced. The ice glistens, dense and faintly steaming in the warm air. You stare. Where did he get that? He looks up, sees your expression, and grins. His teeth flash white beneath a gray beard, and he gestures for you to follow. You do. What you find next is something straight out of a dream, a massive cone-shaped structure rising from the earth like a mud-colored volcano. Wide at the base, tapering toward the top. Its outer surface is ribbed, sloped, deeply grooved, and cracked with time. A staircase spirals around the base, and at the top, a narrow vent opens toward the pale morning sky. This is a yakshal. The name means ice pit. But don't be fooled, this isn't just a pit. It's a refrigerator the size of a house, built entirely out of mud, ash, sand, and science. And it's been making ice in the desert for over 2,000 years. The man opens a door at its base. Cool air rolls out across your feet like mist from a forgotten cave. You step inside and gasp because it's cold. Not a little cooler than outside cold. Proper cold. The kind that tightens your skin. And stacked along the sloped walls, buried in straw and wrapped in damp cloth, are dozens of ice blocks. Not cracked, not melting, intact. Solid. You kneel down and run your hand over one. It glistens crystal clear. You rest your palm on it, letting the chill seep into your fingers. And still, the question lingers. How? Here's the trick. The yakshal isn't just a container, it's a machine. A passive freezer. In the coldest months of winter, shallow pools were dug outside the structure. Water from canets or diverted streams was poured into them overnight. The desert nights, often well below freezing, turned the water to ice. Then, before the sun could rise too high, workers would cut the ice, haul it into the yakshal, and stack it inside the conical chamber. The walls of the yakshal are key. They're made from a special mix called saruj, a blend of clay, ash, sand, lime, and sometimes goat hair. Completely water-resistant. Insulating. And the thickness? Sometimes more than 2 meters. But insulation's not enough. The shape matters too. The cone design allows hot air to rise and escape through the top vent while cold air sinks and settles at the base. The floor of the chamber is dug deep below ground, and often there's a drain to remove meltwater, which also helps keep the remaining ice colder. In essence, it's a reverse chimney with a sunproof thermos attached. And here's the kicker. In some towns, ice stored this way could last well into summer. Families would come retrieve small amounts for yogurt drinks, sorbets, or even medicinal cooling cloths for fevers. Historians still debate whether the yakshal design evolved gradually from natural cave storage or if it was the product of a specific dynasty's engineering experiment. But there's one thing they agree on: no other ancient civilization managed desert ice on this scale. You walk around the inside slowly, marveling at how the air feels untouched by the sun. You breathe deeply. There's a scent, earthy, damp, faintly floral from the cloth wraps. A chill clings to your arms. You stay for a long moment, letting the quiet cold settle into your bones. Then the man offers you a small wooden cup. You sip. It's faluda, a frozen dessert made with rice noodles, rose water, and crushed ice. The taste is delicate, surprising. Sweet, but not overwhelming. The texture slides across your tongue like snow that's been told to behave. You finish it slowly. Every bite is a miracle. Outside again, the sun climbs higher. You squint upward. The city bakes just like always. But now you understand something new. The Persians didn't fight the desert, they taught it how to share. They didn't invent some mechanical miracle. They observed, waited, shaped the environment like potters shape clay. They used darkness, airflow, evaporation, and slope. They used time. A family passes by, carrying a tray of sherbet-filled cups and a stack of crushed ice wrapped in cloth. A young girl sees you and points to your hands. She mimes licking. You smile, embarrassed, and show her your empty cup. She giggles and keeps walking. You glance back at the yakshal one last time. It stands quietly, doing its work without fanfare. The desert may roar and blaze all around it, but inside that cone, the air remains steady, timeless, cold. It's easy to miss these structures if you're not looking. Most are half-buried, softened by centuries of sun and silence. Some lie forgotten outside city walls, but a few still stand, still in use, keeping ice alive in places where it has no business existing. And that's the magic of it. Not just cold in the desert, but cold held in place by mud and shadow, like a secret whispered between seasons. You keep walking, and in your mouth the rosewater lingers. By now, your body knows the rhythm. Heat above, cool below. Wind through towers, stillness in chambers. It all makes a kind of sleepy sense, as if the city's breathing has synced with your own. But just when you think you've seen it all, towers, tunnels, ice in the desert, you round a bend and come face to face with something that makes you stop mid-step. A wall, but not just any wall. It's tall, smooth, and utterly blank. No windows, no doors, no visible pattern or carving. It stands at the edge of a garden, casting a perfect shadow over a narrow walkway. You place your hand against it, cool, even though the sun has been up for hours. Then it hits you. The wall is facing away from the sun. You take a few steps backward, then glance up. Along the top edge, another curve, a gentle arch that leads you to suspect something is hiding behind it. And sure enough, when you circle the wall and peer into the garden, you see it. A house with thick walls, almost a meter wide in places. Not sculpted like palaces, not ornate like temples, just built like a fortress against the sun. It's thermal mass, and it's brilliant. The man tending the garden, barefoot with a wide straw hat, beckons you over. He knows what you're staring at. He leads you to the side of the house and invites you to place both hands on the wall. One side, the shaded side, feels like stone pulled from a mountain spring. The other, facing the sun, is warm but not scorching. He taps the wall with his knuckles, and you hear the sound. Solid, deep, muffled. Like knocking on sleep itself. What you're feeling is a design philosophy as old as agriculture. Thick-walled buildings that store heat during the day and release it slowly at night. No air conditioning. No insulation foam. Just sheer mass. Here's how it works. During the hottest part of the day, the walls absorb the sun's energy. But they're so thick that the heat takes hours, sometimes over 12, to penetrate fully. By the time that heat reaches the interior side of the wall, night has fallen, and the temperature has dropped. The heat can then radiate inward without discomfort, or be vented outward through upper windows and the badger. In the morning, when the outside air begins to heat up again, the process reverses. The result? A stable interior temperature that barely budges more than a few degrees across the cycle of an entire day. You step inside. The room is dim, but not gloomy. Light filters through tiny upper windows, and the air has that cool density you now associate with wisdom. The walls are painted in earth tones: ochre, umber, dusty white. Each color chosen not just for beauty, but for its reflectivity and calming effect. There are no sharp corners. Everything here is rounded, Even the doorways curve like quiet sighs. In the corner, a niche holds fruit, pears, pomegranates, apricots stored in woven baskets. No refrigeration, just placement. The deepest part of the room is always the coolest, thanks to the way airflow is guided. You sit on a low cushion. The man pours tea. It's hot, paradoxically, but you sip it anyway. Your body has learned now what the locals have always known. Hot tea in hot weather makes you sweat, and sweat cools you down. It's not a contradiction. It's a system. As the man prepares dates and flatbread, he tells you a story, not in perfect English, but with enough warmth that language becomes a background detail. His grandfather built this house, using the same methods passed down for generations. Every wall was measured by sunshadow. Every vent placed based on where goats lay in the afternoon. He learned where wind entered and where it died. And he shaped the home accordingly. No blueprint, just observation. You look up. Above you, the roof curves gently, not flat, but subtly domed. The ceiling has small ventilation slits along the sides, allowing heat to rise and exit while letting cooler air settle downward. It's the stack effect, again and again, reused and repurposed in every layer of this desert architecture. Historians still puzzle over how consistently this knowledge appears across the region. Did villages share ideas? Did traveling builders pass techniques like bread recipes? Or was it a matter of pure necessity, with similar designs emerging because there was only one right way to survive the sun? You stand again, and the man walks you to the back of the house, where another structure waits. Smaller, almost hidden. A storage dome, a separate room built just for food preservation. You step inside and the air changes again. It's darker here and drier. The clay floor has been treated with a lime compound that repels insects. Earthen jars line the walls, each one sealed with cloth and tied with rope. You lift a lid. Inside, buttermilk, still cool. Another jar holds dried herbs, another cracked wheat. A third? Lemon syrup, thick and sharp with sugar. None of it has spoiled. None of it needed a refrigerator. You begin to understand that the house itself is the refrigerator. Every room designed with purpose. Every wall with memory. This is passive design at its best. Working with the elements, not against them. You thank the man, step outside again. The sun is high now. The streets shimmer slightly, but you feel fine. Not blistered, not desperate. The house has given you a kind of armor. Not to shield you from the heat entirely, but to teach you how to live with it. On the way back, you pass other homes. All built from the same recipe. Mud brick, thick walls, smart placement. You notice that even the streets curve slightly, not just to follow the terrain, but to reduce the amount of time any one wall spends in full sun. You think about your own city. Its straight lines, its glass towers, its AC units humming like caged insects. This city doesn't hum, it breathes. Even in full daylight, there's a softness to the shadows. A respect for the sun rather than war against it. And as you step into another quiet courtyard, the breeze finds you again. Same as always, reliable, kind. By now you recognize the signs before they appear. The breeze teasing your sleeves. The hush that falls just before the heat lifts. The way people pause, mid-step, not to rest, but to listen. You've learned that in this place, silence isn't empty. It's just a different kind of conversation. One between air and clay. Between sun and shadow. Between what's built and what's endured. And right now, you're about to enter the busiest, quietest place in the city. The bazaar. You approach it like a traveler approaching shade. Not because you're desperate, but because you know it'll hold something you didn't even realize you needed. The outer walls of the bazaar loom high and blank, intentionally so. Their job isn't to dazzle. Their job is to protect, and they do it beautifully. The entrance is low and wide, a heavy archway wrapped in faded tiles. You step inside and the temperature drops immediately 4, maybe 5 degrees. Not dramatic, but undeniable. You let your eyes adjust to the soft light. No harsh fluorescence here. Just filtered sunbeams stretched thin through carved wooden screens overhead. The bazaar is a world unto itself. It twists and turns like a river of smells and murmurs in motion. One turn leads to rugs, the next to copper pots, the next to heaps of dried mulberries. Everywhere you look, fabric, spices, carved doors leaning against walls, racks of sandals, baskets full of rose petals. And yet it's not loud. The air moves constantly, pulled by long shafts in the ceilings, ventilation towers hidden among the architecture. Some are old badgers repurposed for vertical airflow. Others use passive convection. As hot air rises through the bazaar's highest domes, it draws cooler air in from the shaded entrances. It's genius. Silent. Completely mechanical. Just a handful of vertical slits and carefully placed openings regulating the entire space like lungs. The merchants know this. They arrange their stalls accordingly, delicate silks under the cooler currents, tougher goods closer to the warm edges. The date seller waves you over and offers you a sample, sticky, sweet, warm from the ambient air. Across from him, a woman selling honeyed pistachios fans herself gently with a folded scrap of cardboard. Not out of desperation, just habit. You drift further in. Now you're under a domed section, the ceiling rising high above your head. You stop, squint. There it is again, that thermal logic the entire city seems to follow. The dome isn't just beautiful. It's functional. Heat pools at the top, drawn upward through vents or small clear-story windows. Meanwhile, the sides of the dome are thick, maybe a meter or more of packed mud brick, soaking up the sun's ambition and turning it into silence. You take a seat at the edge of a carpet seller's stall. He nods. Doesn't speak, just pours a small glass of cold pomegranate juice and hands it to you. It's exactly what you needed even if you didn't ask. And as you sit, you notice something else. The layout of the bazaar itself is designed with airflow in mind. The corridors aren't random. They curve subtly, funneling air in gentle, whispering directions. A straight hallway would become a tunnel of heat. But these, they meander. They allow breezes to enter, slow down, mingle with scents, then move on. Even the floor helps. It's not concrete. It's stone, porous, rough, old stone that soaks in coolness at night and releases it during the day. Your sandals scrape softly as you walk. Historians still debate whether this kind of design was intentional from the start or just a result of trial and error passed down through merchant families. But one thing is clear. This isn't just a market. It's a cooling machine with stalls inside it. You pass through a section of the bazaar selling glass, vases, beads, lamps. The light here is different. The walls are cut with narrow horizontal slits, allowing thin shafts of sunlight to illuminate the goods without heating the air too much. A man is polishing a blue glass lamp. He catches your eye and tilts it so the sun shines through. The light scatters across your arm in fractured sapphire. For a moment, it feels like you're underwater. Then comes the scent. Cardamom, heavy and sweet. You follow it to the spice corridor, where jars line the shelves in dizzying arrays. A boy hands you a pinch of saffron, crumbles it in your palm. You sniff. It burns a little sharp, dusty, floral. You smile. He grins back. You keep walking. Every 20 or 30 paces, a small opening appears in the ceiling barely a foot wide. At first, you think they're just there for light. But then you feel it again, that tug of air, the soft downward drift of moving coolness. You glance up. They're passive wind vents aligned to catch stray breezes, then guide them downward. No fans. No electricity. Just design. The further you go, the cooler it gets. In one shadowed nook, a woman is kneading dough. Her shop is nestled near one of the largest ventilation shafts, and you realize it's not just for her comfort. Fermented dough behaves better in stable temperatures. The airflow keeps it calm, rising but not rushing. She offers you a piece of flatbread straight from the clay oven beside her. The soft, blistered, steaming slightly. You tear it gently and eat. The warmth is comforting, familiar, like the sun remembered how to be kind. You realize something here. The architecture of this place isn't just practical, it's emotional. Every airflow, every shadow, every cool tile underfoot is a message from the people who came before. People who knew the desert couldn't be beaten, but it could be taught to whisper. You stay until late afternoon, moving through the bazaar's veins like a slow current. And just when you think you've seen everything, you stumble upon a fountain. It's tucked into a quiet courtyard at the very heart of the market. Fed by a cannon, of course. The water burbles gently and people dip their hands in without hesitation. Not to drink, just to feel. A small boy splashes his feet. An old man soaks a rag and drapes it around his neck. You follow their lead. The cloth cools instantly, the air lifts from your skin, and suddenly the heat feels like background noise. You sit at the edge of the fountain and watch the ripples. And for the first time in what might be hours, you stop wondering how any of this is possible. You just let it be. You're not sure how long you've been sitting at the fountain. Long enough for the sun to tilt, for the shadows to shift their allegiance, for the breeze to taste like dusk. It wraps around you now, cooler than before, softer, almost curious. Like the city itself is wondering if you're starting to understand. You rise slowly, joints just a bit stiffer, skin a touch saltier from the long day's journey. A merchant near the fountain nods at you, offers a sweet preserved fig, and gestures toward a narrow alley lined with flowering vines. You follow, ducking beneath an arched gate, and then you smell it. A cold, perfumed scent that doesn't belong to any fruit or flower you've encountered yet. It's subtle, elusive, somewhere between rose and mint and distant thunder. You walk toward it like a moth to cool flame. The alley widens into a courtyard, and there, tucked into the shaded heart of it, is a rectangular chamber partially sunken into the ground, surrounded by low benches and tiled in gentle blue. And resting at its center, rising no higher than your waist, is an enormous, glazed ceramic jar. You've arrived at the kazana. It's not just any jar. It's a cold water cistern, shaded, ventilated, and precisely placed. This one's centuries old, you can tell. The ceramic glistens faintly with condensation, and a thin copper ladle rests on a peg beside it. Above, a stone canopy filters light into soft, dappled patterns. You lean in. The scent intensifies. The man sitting nearby, thin, gray-haired, wrapped in linen, watches you without speaking. Then, with a slow hand, he dips the ladle and offers you a drink. You sip, and everything slows down. The water is cold, truly cold. Colder than anything should be after a full day in the sun. And it's infused with something light, aromatic, almost spiritual. You swallow, blink, and feel your body respond with quiet thanks. That scent? Borage flowers, maybe? Or crushed basil. A local herb used to cool the blood, people say. The man finally speaks. Just one word. Aram. It means peace, and he's right, because what you're drinking isn't just water, it's engineered tranquility. This cistern is more than a container. It's the result of layered wisdom, inherited and applied with quiet precision. The jar is made from a mix of high-fired clay and glaze, built to reflect sunlight and resist thermal absorption. The pit it sits in, dug well below the ambient heat line. The canopy, aligned to shield the jar during peak sun hours, while still allowing airflow from above. And then there's the herb infusion, an old tradition, not just for taste, but because certain herbs naturally cool the body. It's medicine disguised as refreshment. You sip again and your breath comes easier. In many towns, kazanas like this one are scattered through neighborhoods, each with its own keeper, usually an elder, someone with the patience to maintain temperature and purity. The water is drawn from canets, filtered through layers of gravel and charcoal, and sometimes chilled further by night air alone. You hear the whisper of wings overhead, pigeons fluttering along the tiles. And beyond that, distant voices. A child laughing. A soft bell. A pot clinking against stone. It's all so quiet, but not still. You lean back on the bench and glance up. Even here, where no wind seems to blow, there's movement. Above the courtyard, the walls slope inward slightly, guiding warm air upward. High vents sit open near the roofline, allowing heat to escape. It's a chimney effect, passive and constant. That's what keeps this place calm. Not ice. Not shade. Air in motion. You begin to notice these principles everywhere. A series of bricks stacked with intentional gaps, creating a decorative wall that also functions as a ventilated screen. A rooftop overhang shaped just so to cast a precise shadow across the cistern at noon. A trellis covered in gourds, not just for food, but because their broad leaves cool the surrounding air. Historians still discuss whether such layered design was instinct or engineering. Some argue it must have been trial and error, generations experimenting, adjusting, adapting. Others believe the knowledge was codified, taught, spread intentionally across regions and dynasties. But here's the real answer. It worked, and it still works. A boy approaches the jar with a small cup. He's maybe 8, barefoot, grinning. The keeper fills his cup, tousles his hair, and sends him on his way. No charge. No fuss. Just shared water in a city that knows how to listen to the heat without surrendering to it. You rise, stretch, and leave the courtyard the way you came. Outside, the city is shifting into evening. The sun has lowered itself onto the horizon like a coin sinking into sand. And with it, the temperature eases, slowly, like a knot unwinding. You walk along rooftops now, on one of the raised walkways that connect homes. Up here, you see more domes, more badgers, more jars glistening in twilight. You pass a rooftop with a canvas screen stretched across its side, acting as a wind funnel, redirecting the night breeze down through the home below. In another corner, a mother is rinsing vegetables beside a shallow rooftop basin, the water spilling softly over the edge, cooling the surrounding clay. This is what you begin to understand. Every surface in this city is working to cool, to hold, to guide. Nothing is idle. Every curve, every slope, every humble jar has a purpose. Even the roof tiles are shaped to trap water when it rains, rare but precious. And when the rain comes, the city changes shape entirely. The rooftops become collection points, the gutters filter to storage pits, and the badgers, well, they just keep breathing. You sit at the edge of a rooftop watching the last light leave the sky. A family nearby sets up blankets for sleeping outdoors. It's cool now, too cool to stay inside. A small child rolls across the blanket, giggling. The parents sip tea. A candle is lit not because it's dark, but because it's tradition. You lie back, the tiles beneath you still faintly warm from the day. And above you, a ceiling of stars. No sound of fans. No buzz of wires. Just the hum of a city that learned, 1,000 years ago, how to sleep with the desert. The sky above you is velvet now, stretched tight across the city like an embroidered canopy. The stars aren't just visible, they're vivid, unshaken by light pollution or sky glow. You lie there for a while, letting the rooftops' warmth bleed slowly into the coolness of your limbs, and for a moment you could swear the night is holding its breath. A wind stirs, not the harsh kind that throws sand or rattles shutters. No, this is the kind of breeze that knows when to arrive. A breeze that drifts through the badgers, circles quietly under the eaves, and curls around sleeping bodies on rooftops like a second blanket. You sit up. You can't sleep yet. Not with one more mystery teasing the edge of your thoughts. You've felt it since the first tower, since the first underground tunnel, since that first cool sip of water beside the old man's garden. It's not just the structures themselves. It's what connects them. This city is stitched together by something more than mud brick and genius. So you go looking for it. You take the stairs down from the roof, past an old wooden door creaking on a copper hinge, and into the side streets. They are narrow, twisted, deliberately irregular. No straight boulevards here. No city planner's grid. Just organic shape, grown from habit and survival. And that's when you see it. A shallow channel, no wider than your foot, running along the side of the path. It gleams faintly in the moonlight. Water. Moving. Not rushing, but not still either. A stream guided by intention. This is a Yubei or Paradise Canal, an above-ground cousin of the Kanet. Unlike its hidden sibling, the Yubei is designed to be seen and heard. It moves through the streets like a gentle voice, weaving past doorsteps, through public squares, beneath wooden bridges, and finally into courtyards and gardens. You crouch beside it. The water is cool even now. You trail your fingers in it as you walk. It responds like silk, parting gently, rejoining behind your hand. These channels serve many purposes, cooling the air, watering gardens, feeding cisterns. But they also carry something else, a philosophy. Because in the heart of this ancient city, you realize that the one thing more precious than water is shade. And where water flows, shade follows. You trace the Yubei until it turns sharply and disappears beneath the gate. You peer through, and what you find is astonishing. A Chahar Bagh, the ancient Persian garden. You enter without asking because something in the silence invites you in. The space is symmetrical, divided by 4 water channels that cross at the center, forming a perfect X. The name itself, Chahar Bagh, means for gardens. And that's exactly what you see. For square plots, each planted differently. One is heavy with fig and almond trees. Another overflows with tall grasses and night-blooming jasmine. A third brims with herbs, basil, mint, maybe tarragon. And the last is simply soft ground, scattered with petals and surrounded by benches. The whole thing is enclosed by walls separating the garden from the harsh world outside. The walls are thick, climbing high enough to trap cool air inside. Above them, vines drape down like lazy guards. A cat sleeps on one of the benches, perfectly still. You walk along the central path toward the fountain at the garden's heart. It's small, barely more than a ripple over smooth stone, but the sound it makes is perfect, just enough to break the silence without disturbing the peace. You sit, and there it is again, that strange inverted logic that governs the city. Where other cultures might fight the desert with air conditioners and synthetic lawns, the Persians whispered back. They didn't build over the desert. They built with it. Bend it gently. Let it keep its pride. The garden proves it. Every tree planted for maximum shade. Every channel of water placed to reflect light, guide air, offer drink. And at the very center, always, stillness. Historians still argue whether these gardens were purely spiritual spaces, symbols of paradise from ancient Zoroastrian belief, or whether they began as pragmatic cooling systems that slowly took on sacred meaning. Some say the layout mimics cosmic balance. Others say it's just what works. You don't care either way, because right now, surrounded by jasmine and mint with moonlight slipping through lattice and the sound of water folding into itself, you believe in paradise. You lie back on the bench and gaze up again. Even the sky feels different here, deeper, like it's pressing less urgently on your mind. You can feel your pulse slowing, your breath thickening into sleep. Before your eyes close completely, you notice the edges of the garden wall. They're not just flat, they're angled, built to reflect light inward during the day, but shield against glare. Built to catch sound and bounce it back gently. Built to encourage quiet. Every surface of this garden is conspiring to soothe you, and it's working. You close your eyes fully now, and the world doesn't go dark. It goes blue. Deep, indigo blue. Cool. Protective. Like the inside of the yakshal. Like the heart of the kanet. Like a dream you're finally allowed to have. You let the breeze carry you there, and the last thing you hear before sleep claims you? The whisper of water, still moving, always moving, even while you rest. You wake to birdsong and the faint rustle of leaves. The air is still cool, so cool, in fact, you briefly forget you're in the middle of a desert. You open your eyes to shifting shadows cast by the garden's trees. Pale morning light filters through fig leaves, scattering sunspots across the brick path and catching dewdrops clinging to the mint. A chaharbog always knows how to say good morning. You sit up, stretch, and take a moment to absorb your surroundings again. You slept better than you have in weeks. Maybe months. Maybe it's the water. Or the air. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the way the city was designed for sleep as much as it was designed for survival. A soft breeze brushes past your face. You follow it. Out of the garden. Through a narrow corridor where vines grow thick overhead, forming a living roof of green. The air beneath it is heavier with moisture than you'd expect, sweet and damp and cool. And when you glance down, you see another small canal. A ube like before. But this one is narrower. More delicate. Barely wider than your wrist. It leads to a residential compound, larger than a single home, smaller than a palace. The door stands open, not in invitation exactly, but in quiet assumption that no one here needs to hide behind barriers. You step through. Inside, you're greeted by a sight you've started to recognize, a central courtyard, ringed by rooms, shaded by trees, and anchored by a small pool. Not for swimming, no. For air. For light. For presence. A woman greets you with a smile, offers no words, and gestures toward a wooden bench beside the water. She places a shallow dish of rosewater nearby. The scent wafts up immediately, cutting through the morning haze with a note of gentle luxury. You sit, and that's when it starts to click. This isn't just architecture. This is ritual. Not in the religious sense, though there's that too, woven into corners and customs. But in the daily patterns of movement, sound, silence. The city guides you without force. It leads you by temperature, by comfort, by logic shaped into walls. The woman returns with a metal bowl. Inside, chilled yogurt, herbs, cucumber. Masto Kyer. Breakfast. She hands you a wooden spoon and steps back. You take a bite. It's cold, creamy, slightly tart, refreshing, and beneath that, another current. Dill. A whisper of garlic. Crushed dried rose petals. The flavors don't wake you up like coffee might. They coax you awake, gently and patiently. As you eat, a breeze dances through the courtyard again. You can feel where it's coming from, the badger, of course. It stands tall over the home, directing wind downward into the central space and out through vents near the floor. This constant, invisible tide has become something you almost don't notice anymore. Like breathing. But today you're going to follow it. You rise, thank the woman, and exit the compound, turning toward the part of the city where the badgers cluster like quiet sentinels. Some tall and square, others octagonal. All of them reaching, all of them listening for wind, and you're going to see what's inside one. You pass a bakery along the way, just a clay oven tucked into a courtyard. A man slaps dough against the hot surface, peels it away as it blisters, and lays it on a stone slab. He doesn't speak, but hands you a piece. Warm, charred at the edges. When you tear it open, steam escapes. You eat as you walk, the bread folded around fresh greens and goat cheese. As you near the edge of the residential district, the noise fades completely. The air smells different here. Drier, cleaner, carried by altitude. Because now you're at the base of a badger tower so tall it seems to touch the clouds. You step inside the building, it cools. It's almost silent. Inside, the air moves around you like thought. You can't see it, but you feel it, drifting down from above, swirling, curling through the arches, slipping along the floor like a low fog. You look up. There's a vent in the ceiling, open and deliberate. Above that, the tower. You can't see the top, but you can feel its reach. The temperature here? Easily 10 degrees cooler than the street. You climb a set of clay stairs that wind their way upward inside the wall. As you ascend, you pass narrow slits in the brick angled just so. Not windows. Air intakes. One side of the tower is always facing the prevailing wind. That side is open at the top, catching the breeze. The other sides remain closed or vent warm air out. At the midpoint, you pause at a window. From here, you can see across rooftops and domes, courtyards and canals. You see where the wind moves, where the sun lands, where the shadows are deepest. And you see how every building listens to the same conversation. You reach the top, and you step into the wind chamber of the Badger. It's almost empty. Just crossbeams, small ropes hung to measure airflow, and the constant whisper of breeze being caught and guided. You lean over slightly, just enough to see down the shaft, where it narrows, leading the wind into the rooms below. This tower has no machinery, no switch, no fan, just geometry and faith in the elements. Historians still debate whether badgers originated in ancient Persia or were adapted from earlier Mesopotamian ideas. Some argue they were invented to solve the cooling crisis of early mud-brick cities. Others believe they were first used to cool tombs, silent places where airflow mattered more than light. But you're standing inside one. And whatever their origin, you know their purpose now. They don't just cool, they mediate. They remind the sun it doesn't rule here. They speak to the air and guide it not with force, but with understanding. You descend again, slowly, thoughtfully. When you reach the ground, you sit just inside the entrance, letting the tower breathe over you. And you realize something. This whole city is a conversation between opposites. Heat and cold, light and shadow, movement and stillness. Every structure is a sentence, every courtyard a paragraph. And the badgers? They're the punctuation. By now, the desert is no longer your enemy. Not even your host. It's your co-conspirator. It offers heat and the city cools it. It offers dust and the city sifts it. It offers silence and the city says, good. Let's keep it that way. You walk slowly now, not from exhaustion, but from a kind of reverence. You don't want to miss anything. Every corner of this place seems to contain another gentle miracle wrapped in mudbrick and common sense. You pass a wall draped in grapevines and pause to pluck a single fruit. It bursts on your tongue, warm, yes, but sweet, intensely alive. Grown here, in this climate, because the wall behind it shields the roots from direct sun and lets them rest in cooler earth below. The wall knows what it's doing. So does the grapevine. And just ahead, beyond a low doorway, you're about to meet something else that's been waiting for you. The hammam. You'd heard about it before, whispers in the market, half-nods from locals, stories wrapped in steam and history. But now here it is, tucked behind a modest clay wall with a worn wooden sign above the door. No advertisement. No noise. Just a door half open and the scent of eucalyptus curling through the cracks. You duck inside, and the world changes. The first thing you notice is the sound. Not silence exactly, but muffled life. A low rhythm of dripping water, the occasional shuffle of feet, a whisper of breath echoing off tile. It's like walking into a ceramic cave. The walls are tiled in deep greens and browns, the air thick with warm humidity and the light filtered through slits in the ceiling. You're handed a cloth by a quiet attendant who gestures toward a side room where others rest, bathe, breathe. You strip down to the basics, not out of modesty, but because layers don't belong in here. They trap too much. The hammam is a place for shedding, not just clothes, but weight, thoughts, heat. And when you step into the main chamber, the warmth hits you like a soft wall. This isn't oppressive heat, it's designed heat. The floor is warm but not burning. The air clings but it doesn't smother. You feel your muscles slacken almost immediately, your breath deepen, your eyelids tug downward like curtains being drawn for sleep. In the center of the room sits a large, low marble slab. It gleams with steam. Around it, channels run with hot water, pulled from underground and heated naturally through solar exposure in nearby holding pools. The water cycles continuously, always warm, never still. You lie down, and the attendant returns, not to rush, not to sell, but to begin a kind of ritual. First, warm water poured slowly down your back. Then a coarse cloth, gently roughing away the dust and dead cells of the day. Then soap, olive oil-based, fragrant but not heavy. The lather is thick, luxurious, and cools slightly as it slides across your skin. You are not the first to lie here. These slabs have held centuries of bodies, merchants, mothers, scholars, guards. All of them submitting to the same treatment, cleansing as a form of cooling. In a place where ice is rare and refrigeration ancient, the hammam has always served a second purpose. It equalizes. You sit up slowly, woozy in the best way, and sip cool water laced with mint and cucumber. Your body tingles, not in excitement, but in relief. The kind of deep reset you didn't know you needed until it happened. And here's the wild part. The hammam is also an air conditioner in disguise. Not just for your body, but for the entire building. Its design follows the same logic you've seen everywhere else. The hot room is sunken into the ground where temperatures are more stable. The walls are double thick to retain heat where it's needed, and vents near the ceiling carry steam out and allow cooler air to slip back in. Some hammams even share cannet access, using naturally chilled underground water to regulate sections of the building. And then there's the entry chamber, the sarbana, where warm and cool air mingle gently, helping the body transition between environments without shock. The floors there are made of stone, polished smooth by generations of bare feet, and under them, air channels, carved centuries ago to let hot air flow out of the system entirely. Historians still debate how widespread this architectural knowledge was. Some claim these air channels, called Garmkhana tunnels, were only found in royal hammams. Others argue they existed in smaller towns, too, passed down by builders who knew the land better than any engineer. What's undeniable is how effective they are. You dress slowly now, every movement syrup-thick with relaxation. You thank the attendant with a nod, and he smiles, not broadly, but with the kind of grin that says, yes, now you understand. And you do. As you step outside, you feel the world more clearly. Your senses are tuned. The air is warm, yes, but your body is balanced, acclimated, part of the system. And just outside the hammam, a small courtyard shaded by date palms and a lattice roof. You sit there for a while, watching the sun creep sideways. The shadows shift like old friends rearranging themselves for comfort. Nearby, a woman hangs linen to dry. She uses not a rope but a wooden lattice placed near a badger outlet so the drying cloth benefits from constant airflow. Ingenious. Invisible. Everyday magic. It's everywhere here. You walk on, now through an older part of the city. The buildings are more worn, the bricks darker, the doors heavier. But the principles remain. Overhead walkways connect homes to reduce heat absorption. Mud brick facades are angled just slightly to guide rain into catchments when it comes. And low, square vents sit at foot level, pulling coolness into places where children nap in the afternoon. You pass a school. No glass windows, just wooden shutters and carved screens. Light filters through in shifting patterns. Inside, children sit cross-legged, learning verses or writing letters, their voices like birdsong rising into the vented ceiling. Even here, the architecture teaches. It says, stay low, stay cool, move air, move slowly. You begin to wonder how many cities have forgotten to teach like this. You've walked long enough to feel the day begin its second breath. Not cooler yet, but calmer. The sun no longer attacks. It lingers, stretches itself like a lion across the rooftops, no longer hunting, just warming. You pause in a narrow alley. The buildings here lean toward each other, casting shadows that meet like hands clasping in prayer. The path is lined with polished stones, worn smooth by centuries of sandals. It's quiet, almost holy. Not because of anything religious, but because everything here feels earned. You reach out and trail your fingers along the wall as you walk. The mud brick is warm but not burning. Its surface is cracked slightly, deliberate, natural. These walls breathe. That's what makes them special. They aren't sealed off from the world, they exchange with it. This isn't a place that pretends to control the desert. It's a place that understands it. You round a corner and step into another open courtyard. But this one is different. It's not residential, not commercial. It doesn't belong to any one family or trade. It's public, an oasis built right into the city. There's a shallow pool at its center, not deep enough to swim, but wide enough to reflect the entire sky. And along its edges, stone benches, low shrubs, and thin pergolas strung with vines. You hear footsteps, laughter, the soft plink of water against tile. A boy throws in a pebble and his sister claps. It's cooler here. You sit beside the pool, dipping your hand in the water. It's not cold, but it's enough. And above you, a pair of swallows dip and rise, weaving arcs in the heat. You're not alone. Other travelers rest here. Some with bundles, some with books, some simply with time to pass. It's clear this place is meant for everyone. No doors, no fees, just space designed to welcome. And that design is precise. Each pergola is angled to shade a section of bench at every hour of the day. The pool reflects heat back into the air and guides breezes from the side alleys through the square. Around the courtyard, narrow windows open into storage chambers, likely once used for grain, textiles, or perhaps something colder. One older man gestures you over. He's sitting beside a narrow, slanted grate just off the stone path. You crouch beside him and peer down. It's dark and cold. You feel it instantly, an exhale of underground air rising from below. Not just cool, frigid compared to the afternoon warmth. It chills your knuckles as you hover them near the grate. The old man smiles and taps the bricks beside it. Yakshal, he says softly, the ancient ice pit. You'd heard of them, but this one is hidden in plain sight. You lean in further. This particular yakshal is sealed, of course, as most are. But it breathes through that narrow vent, releasing stored coolness into the courtyard. And though you can't descend into its depths, you know what lies below. A conical chamber, dug deep into the earth, lined with a special mixture of clay, ash, lime, and goat hair. The walls are thick, sometimes up to 2 meters wide. That thickness, combined with the underground depth and the dome shape, creates a perfect thermal trap. It resists heat. It rejects the desert's demands. But how was the ice placed there? That's the beauty of it. During winter, water was guided into shallow pools beside the yakshal, left overnight to freeze, sometimes helped along by the orientation of walls that blocked early morning sun and allowed the bitter desert night to chill the surface. In the morning, workers would collect the ice, layer it with straw or ash, and lower it into the pit for storage. Months later, in the burning heat of summer, that same ice would be lifted out and used to preserve food, make sherbet, or offer cool relief in places like this courtyard. Historians still argue how common these ice pits were. Some claim they were luxuries reserved for the elite. Others point to community use, especially in trading cities where preservation was critical for survival. But there's no debate about one thing: they worked, and some are still in use. You sit back, amazed. It's one thing to chill water in an underground tunnel, another to build ventilation towers that turn air into bomb. But to store ice through the summer using geometry, reflection, and patience, that's sublime. The man beside you says nothing more, just pats your shoulder and returns to sipping tea. You look around the courtyard again, and it hits you how every single thing in this space is in conversation with that hidden cold. The shape of the benches, the placement of shade, even the location of nearby clay jars, each tilted slightly to catch the breeze sliding out of that ancient yakshal vent. And above you, a sundial. Not elaborate, just a wedge of stone casting its shadow on a circle etched into the tiles. But it tells the same story, the same lesson. Time doesn't move in straight lines here. It curves. Like shade. Like water. Like breath. You sit a little longer, breathing the chilled air from below, watching it mingle with the warmth above. It's not dramatic. Not cinematic. But it's there. Constant. Reassuring. Like the heartbeat of the city. Then, slowly, you rise. You nod to the man, who smiles again and returns to stillness. And as you step back into the alley beyond the courtyard, you feel the difference. The air outside is warmer, drier, less forgiving. But now, you know what lies beneath. You know how the city holds onto winter quietly beneath your feet. The city's rhythm has changed, not stopped, never stopped, but slowed, thickened like syrup in the heat. Afternoon is slipping into the golden hours now, that magical stretch of time when the light loses its bite and everything begins to glow. Shadows lengthen, and rooftops blush under the low sun. You find yourself walking with more ease, not just because the air has softened, but because something inside you has, too. You know this place now, not just its streets, but its intentions. And as you wander, those intentions begin to feel like invitations. You pass through a craftsman's quarter where potters line their shelves with water jars, zairs, carafes, kuzas, each slightly different in shape but made for one thing: cooling. Some are narrow-necked to preserve temperature. Others are unglazed so they can sweat in the sun, evaporating just enough moisture to cool the contents within. A boy sits beside a row of them, dipping a cloth into one and wiping its rim, letting the breeze do the rest. He catches your eye, points at a larger jar, and proudly announces that one kept milk fresh for 2 days. His voice is full of wonder, not because he doubts it, but because he understands why it works. You smile and continue on. Now you're walking beneath a series of arched colonnades, where the shadows stretch like slumbering camels across stone floors. These shaded walkways weren't just built for aesthetics. They're heat buffers, cooling corridors that connect markets, homes, bathhouses. Their curved ceilings guide air gently downward, while their open sides allow cross-ventilation. And as the air moves around you, another scent finds you. Not water, not clay, bread, but not the flatbread from the tandoor earlier. This is something different, richer, sweeter. A scent heavy with dates, nuts, perhaps rosewater. You follow it because what else can you do, and it leads you into a modest open-air square tucked between buildings. At its center, a domed brick oven shaped like a beehive. Around it, trays of show-lizard, nuni kamiai, and delicate pastries waiting to cool. The baker sees you, waves you over, and breaks a piece from a warm loaf, handing it to you with a wink. You bite. It's soft, lightly sweet. Steam curls from the center as you tear off another piece. This is food that tastes like kindness. A woman nearby laughs softly as her child tries to carry 2 small water jars at once, one in each hand like a wobbling scale. He makes it 2 steps before one spills, and she scoops him up with a practiced sigh. And here's the strange part. Even this moment is cool. The courtyard, despite the oven's presence, is surrounded by tall walls that trap the shadows. A shallow canal loops around the perimeter, guiding cool air across the stones. The oven's chimney is angled east, not just for smoke, but to pull hot air away from the square using the same principles as a badger. This is a place where even baking is cooled by design. You take a seat on a low bench and look up at the dome of the oven, admiring how it's been patched over the years. Bits of straw here, an extra tile there. Imperfect, but intentional, like everything in this city. And now the wind is picking up again, soft, dry, and full of memory. It moves differently at this hour, gliding down from the mountains beyond the horizon, threading through the streets like a familiar song. You recognize it now, not just as a weather pattern, but as an architect's partner. You rise again, feeling the call to walk. This time, you find yourself in an older quarter. The walls here are rougher, the alleys tighter, but that only makes the coolness more surprising. Because tucked into this maze of history is a sardab, an underground room, carved deep into the earth, made for storing grain, resting, escaping the sun. You find the entry hidden behind a stone wall where a narrow staircase spirals downward. You descend slowly, and the temperature drops with each step. The air is still, heavy, but comforting, like wool soaked in winter. You reach the bottom and find yourself in a chamber no bigger than a small bedroom. Its walls are lined with clay shelves, most empty now, though a few hold sealed jars. The floor is packed earth, the ceiling arched, and at the center, a single shaft of filtered light pours down from a small opening in the roof, the mother of all skylights. But this one does more than illuminate. It regulates. You sit on the cool floor, and you begin to understand what this room represents. Not just an escape from the sun, but a record of memory. This is where food was stored during scarcity, where elders slept during the hottest months, where families gathered during sandstorms, letting the desert rage while they told stories by lamplight. Historians argue whether sardabs originated with the Achaemenid kings or emerged later, refined over generations of rural builders. Some say the Persians borrowed the idea from Central Asian architecture. Others say they invented it independently out of necessity. But it doesn't matter now, because here you sit in the dark, breathing cool air from thousands of years ago. And for the first time, it truly settles over you. This city was not built quickly. It was carved, layer by layer, from wisdom. You close your eyes, and for a moment, it feels like time stops. Not in some dramatic, cinematic way, but in the way sleep stops things. Gently, without warning. You could stay here forever, but the light changes again. Not brighter, warmer. And that means sunset is near. So you rise and climb back into the world above, blinking at the gold that now floods the alleys. The rooftops are bathed in honeyed light. The clay walls seem to glow from within. And the breeze? It's back. You smile at it now, like an old friend returning to check on you. And you continue walking because the city isn't done revealing itself. Not yet. The sun dips lower now, and the shadows grow longer, reaching like gentle fingers across the ground, stretching out from the bases of towers and rooftops, pooling in alleys where the wind settles with a sigh. You keep walking. There's no destination, not really. The city guides you the way a river leads a leaf, not by force, but by invitation. And this part of the city, it hums differently. You're no longer in the dense heart of homes and markets. The path widens, and the skyline shifts. Ahead, low walls curve around a sprawling complex built with that same familiar earth-toned mud brick, but here, the bricks are cleaner, straighter. The ornamentation is subtle but present. Carved stucco, arched doorways, a tiled inscription along a lintel. You're approaching a caravanserai. You didn't expect it, but of course, it makes sense. These ancient roadside inns were the backbone of Persian travel for centuries, resting points for traders, scholars, pilgrims, and camels alike. Designed to offer shelter from both sun and suspicion, they're built like fortresses of calm. You step through the tall gate and into a vast rectangular courtyard surrounded on all sides by two-story buildings. Stables line the lower level, lodging quarters above. And in the center? A large raised platform of smooth stone shaded by stretched canvas, once used for unloading goods, now quiet in the soft dusk. A man approaches with a nod and offers you a place to sit. You oblige. From your new vantage point, you take it in. Even the caravanserai breathes. The layout ensures that wind passes through, funneled between the outer walls and the inner structures. Shaded walkways wrap the perimeter, their vaulted ceilings designed to trap cooler air near the ground and move warmer air upward. Storage chambers are half buried. Water is drawn from a nearby cistern fed by, you guessed it, a cannet running beneath the compound. It's a desert hotel, engineered not for extravagance, but for survival with grace. And now, as travelers trickle in, some on foot, some leading donkeys, you hear languages you don't recognize. You see clothing from other regions. A man with bright-colored fabrics. A woman with jars of dried fruit. A boy carrying a birdcage. This is a meeting point, a crossroads of heat and culture where ancient Persian cooling wisdom meets strangers who might never have seen such comfort in such a climate. You sip water from a clay cup offered by the host. It's pleasantly cold. The cup, made from porous clay, has been left to sweat in a shaded nook. Evaporative cooling again. Always the same principles. Always working. Dinner is shared on low mats in the center court. Flatbread, dates, yogurt, roasted eggplant mashed with garlic and mint. You eat slowly, talking little, your eyes drawn to the changing sky. Above you, the stars begin to bloom, and with them you sense something stirring in the air. Not just a breeze this time, but a rhythm. A tempo. You're beginning to feel the city's deeper heartbeat. The way it swells in the evening, slows through the night, and breathes in pulses time to heat, light, and shadow. You wander out of the caravanserai after the meal, letting the air guide you again. You pass a small bazaar quarter now closed for the day, the stalls covered in cloth, the last merchants rolling up rugs and packing dried herbs into baskets. The scent of cumin and rosewater lingers in the air like music notes still hanging after a song ends. But even here, amid what should be commercial chaos, cooling wisdom endures. The alleys are narrow, designed not just for defense but to shade the goods throughout the day. Shop fronts are recessed, their ceilings high and domed to trap rising heat. And above, carved wooden lattices filter the sunlight into scattered patterns, making even the dust seem intentional. You pause near an old apothecary, its window ajar. Inside, clay shelves lined with terracotta amphorae. Some sealed, others open, releasing the scent of dried citrus peels and crushed cardamom. One vessel sits near the window, catching the breeze from above. It's sweating, that porous clay again, pulling moisture to the surface, cooling its contents, however slightly. You can't help but smile. This trick never gets old. It's alchemy, using nothing but air, water, and patience. Historians still argue how far this technology traveled. Did Roman engineers learn from it? Were similar cooling jars used in North Africa because of Persian influence, or were they invented independently? There's no consensus, just shards and fragments scattered across continents like breadcrumbs of brilliance. You continue on. You notice now how even doorways are designed with intention. Some are split horizontally, allowing only the top half to open, keeping air in, sand out. Others are recessed, creating shaded vestibules that slow the transition between indoor and out. Nothing here is abrupt. Even time unfolds gradually. You enter a smaller courtyard tucked between two buildings. At its center sits a wind harp, a stringed instrument mounted to catch the breeze and hum softly. You didn't expect music, but now it fills the space like breath. You sit, close your eyes, and let the sound wash over you. Not a performance, just presence. Somewhere, someone lights incense. The scent drifts in on the current, blending with the sound of the harp and the slow exhale of nighttime cooling. You lean back against a low wall. Above you, the badgers are glowing, lit from within by lanterns placed in their bases. They look like lighthouses now or signal fires. Ancient beacons not of warning, but of wisdom. And for the first time, you realize something simple and profound. This entire city is a machine. A slow, breathing, sun-powered machine that cools, calms, guides, and holds. It has no moving parts, just shadows, curves, bricks, water, and wind. You feel the weight of that thought settle over you, not heavy but deep. Like the difference between hearing a fact and understanding a truth. You're no longer just visiting the city. You've joined its rhythm, and it welcomes you. Night has settled now, not just over the city, but inside it. It wraps the rooftops like a soft shawl, drapes across alleys like velvet, settles into the palms of sleeping courtyards. And the city, that breathing machine of earth and silence, cools itself further as if winding down for the kind of sleep that only the desert understands. You find yourself wandering upward again. A slow stairway leads you toward the rooftops where life doesn't end at night, it simply changes form. Up here, domes and flat terraces spread out like a second city above the first. Some are empty. Others are dotted with families reclining on thin mats, whispering under the stars, pouring tea from tall, narrow pots that glisten in the moonlight. You reach a rooftop where no one lingers and make yourself at home on a cool section of tile. The air is lighter here, thinner. The wind has climbed up to meet you. You lie back and stare at the sky, and there it is again, that peculiar feeling this city gives you over and over. Peace through precision. You're not here by accident. You're here because someone, centuries ago, decided this roof should exist at this height, with these bricks, beneath this angle of sky. Someone measured the direction of the prevailing wind, calculated sun patterns, chose the plaster recipe that would stay cool longer under moonlight. Someone built for you without knowing you, and that's a strange kind of comfort. The domes nearby are part of a subterranean storage system. Those smooth, beehive-shaped caps you've been seeing on rooftops aren't decorative. They're cooling structures designed to insulate the chambers below. Some contain dates, others dried meat or pulses. A few even ice. You crawl toward one and place your palm on its surface. Still cool. Even now, hours after sunset, it releases its stored heat so slowly you can barely feel it. The dome's curved shape isn't just beautiful. It minimizes surface area, slows heat transfer, and encourages airflow in a way flat roofs never could. Inside the dome, the walls are thick, rounded, and slathered in that magical mixture of lime, ash, and crushed pottery that resists both water and heat. You're beginning to suspect that if you whispered a wish into one of these structures, it might keep it safe for 1,000 years. You lie back again. Above, the stars are beginning to sharpen. No clouds tonight. Just open sky, ancient and clean. You hear the soft creak of a badger turning its breath inward somewhere nearby. A slow groan of wood. The sigh of cooling air pushed gently downward. And then, faintly, the sound of water. You smile. Even up here, the canet finds you. Its voice muted, filtered through the depths of earth, rising like memory through the cracks in the city's skin. You start to wonder how far those underground tunnels stretch. You remember hearing that the longest known canet extends over 300 kilometers, a winding, gravity-powered river beneath the land. Some were dug centuries ago and still function today. Historians still argue about how the labor was organized. Did massive state systems build them, or were they local projects maintained by families across generations? No one knows for certain. But what they do know is that these tunnels were mapped with such precision that water traveled from snow-capped mountain to oasis village using nothing more than slope and patience. You feel the slope beneath your back now. Slight, measured, intentional. This entire rooftop likely tips toward a catchment basin. Just enough to move rain when it falls into a holding tank. Nothing wasted. Not even the sky. Somewhere far off, a nightbird calls. You drift to your feet, walking along the rooftop toward a higher terrace. From here, you can see across the city, its domes, towers, arches, chimneys, shadows. And scattered among them, the trees. You hadn't noticed how many there were until now. Pomegranate, fig, cypress, date palms. Most grow in sunken gardens or narrow wells, places where their roots can tap into the canet below. But up here, you spot a few rooftop planters too, nestled near wind towers and stairwells. Even the trees are part of the system. They shade walls in the morning and release moisture at night. Their branches stir the air. Their leaves breathe, exhaling into the spaces we call stillness. They are the lungs of the city, growing silently beside the bones of stone. You descend again, slowly, step by careful step, back into the lower levels of the home you never quite entered but somehow belong to now. The hallway you enter is cool. Not dramatically, not artificially, but restfully. Like a pause in a conversation. The walls here are painted with faded patterns, stars, moons, curling vines. The plaster is chipped in places. A cat sleeps beside a broken jar, too content to care. And near the end of the corridor, a room with no door, just a draped cloth and the low murmur of water beyond. You step inside, and you find yourself in a cool chamber lit by nothing but moonlight and a floating candle. The floor is stone, the ceiling domed, and at the center of the room, a pool. Not wide, not deep, just enough. Enough to soak your feet, enough to let the coolness touch your bones. You sit on the edge and lower your legs into the water. It's impossibly cold, not jarringly so, but like a whisper from deep time. This water was snow once, 1,000 years ago, carried by gravity and faith and engineering into a world that would need it long after its creators were gone. You sit in silence, letting it surround your ankles. A gentle pulse of coolness travels up your spine. You lean back, rest against the wall, and close your eyes. You hear no voices, just air, and stone, and time. You stay like that for what could be minutes or hours, and when you finally rise, your limbs are lighter. The air feels different against your skin. You walk barefoot into the next room, which is unlit. Empty. You lie down on a mat, and everything slows. Even thought, even breath, even memory. The night has deepened into stillness now, so deep it feels like the city itself has gone to sleep. But it hasn't. Not really. It just knows how to rest without vanishing. Outside your window, if you can call the open archway beside your mat a window, the breeze has shifted direction again. It now carries a trace of dust, the ghost of stone, and something cool from the canet below rising softly through unseen vents and grills. You lie there on your back, hands behind your head, watching the ceiling above. A dome faintly cracked with age, painted in a simple pattern of stars. The colors are faded, but the brushstrokes remain. Someone long ago made this for no reason other than quiet beauty. There's no function in stars on a ceiling, except to remind you the sky is always just above, and that the earth here, in this strange Persian city, cools you just the same. You sit up slowly. You're not sure why. You're not fully awake, but not fully asleep either. Something in the rhythm of the wind, or the subtle difference in the way shadows move now, has nudged you up. So you rise, wrap yourself in a light shawl, and pad barefoot through the stone corridor again. You pass through 3 rooms. None have doors. They don't need them. The walls are thick enough to insulate. The layout curves just enough to give privacy. The only barriers are air and silence. You step outside again, into a small enclosed garden, where moonlight spills across gravel paths and pomegranate trees shimmer in silver. You sit on the edge of a planter and breathe in deeply. The night air smells different now, cooled, filtered by walls and leaves and age. It's been processed, not by machines, but by intention. It's hard to explain, but the feeling is distinct. This air has been touched, not cleaned, not sterilized, just softened. A cat slips past your feet, tail flicking like a brushstroke. It disappears into the shadows. Somewhere nearby, you hear a splash, just a small one. You follow it barefoot and slow until you reach a sardab you hadn't seen before, a smaller one, nestled beneath a sleeping room, half open to the sky. A boy sits on its steps, trailing his fingers through the water in silence. He doesn't look up. He doesn't need to. You sit beside him without speaking. You both know the rules of night here. No noise, no rush, no sharpness. After a while, he leaves. And you stay, because this sardab is whispering something. Not in words, but in cold. You slide your feet into the shallow channel, let the water creep up to your ankles, then calves. You close your eyes and let your mind go soft. And that's when you remember something you read somewhere, sometime, about how Persian poets used cold water as a metaphor for clarity. Not for shock or drama, but for truth that slips in gently. This place is full of that. Truth softened. You dry your feet on a stone ledge and wander again, this time upward, through a stairwell that narrows as it climbs. The steps are uneven but deliberate, like they're testing your balance, making sure you're not rushing toward anything. At the top, you push aside a curtain and step onto a roof terrace. Not the broad communal kind, but a private one, barely wider than a room, wrapped in short clay walls. The air here is thinner still, and colder. The wind doesn't howl. It hums. You sit beside a chimney flue, built tall and slender. It's angled just so, to pull air from the house below. It doesn't belch smoke. It drinks heat. From here, you can see the other rooftops again, some with people asleep beneath mosquito nets, others with tea trays still set out, unfinished. Lanterns flicker low. A child's toy rests beside a water jar. A mother gathers laundry in the moonlight, folding slowly, carefully. The city isn't asleep. It's resting with its eyes open. Even the badgers are quieter now, drawing less wind. The desert has cooled, the earth has exhaled, and the towers adjust naturally. Their role changes hour by hour. During the day, they draw in wind to cool the rooms. At night, they release trapped warmth, reversing the flow. No one has to adjust them. They're built to understand air. Historians still debate whether these towers were ever actively managed. Did caretakers open and close vents as needed, or were they left to the physics of the moment? There's no universal answer. The only thing scholars agree on is that they worked. Even now, centuries later, they still work. You lie down on the flat clay roof, hands behind your head, and the sky washes over you. You've never seen this many stars. The constellations seem to breathe. A slow wisp of cloud cuts across the moon, and you exhale without realizing you were holding your breath. You're so far from glass, from noise, from wires and hums and digital light. And the irony? You're more comfortable than you've ever been, because comfort doesn't come from gadgets, it comes from being understood. And this city, this old, sunburned, breath-cooled city, understood its people. It offered them cold without electricity, silence without loneliness, space without waste. You close your eyes, not to sleep, not yet, just to let the wind pass through you. You think about how many people built this place without blueprints, only memory. How many generations dug canals without maps? How many architects learned from watching shadows instead of reading formulas? How many hands built coolness, one brick at a time? And now, it's yours, not to keep, but to remember, because the wind will change again soon. And when it does, you'll be ready. You'll know where to sit, how to breathe, where to place the jar, how to angle the door. You'll remember the city's rules, not written down, but etched in earth. Let it breathe, let it rest, let it cool. It's nearly dawn. You feel it before you see it. That barely there's shift in the air, like the sky inhaling before the first bird dares to speak. The breeze curls tighter now, carrying the coldest breath of the night, brushing against your skin with the same touch it gave the mud brick walls hours ago. The stars are beginning to fade, not vanish, just sink back behind the blue. You haven't spoken for hours, not aloud. But you've said so much, if not in words, then in noticing. In walking. In the small choices, which shadow to follow, which vent to stand beneath, which old man to nod to in the courtyard by the ice pit. You've been learning a language all night without realizing it. The language of temperature, of brick and silence. And now the city's about to speak again, with light. You rise from your rooftop mat and descend slowly, back into the body of the home. The rooms are dim but not dark. The walls hold a faint luminescence from moonlight and dust, as if the air itself has memory. You pass the sardab again, and the water still moves, slower now, like sleep breathing. Someone has lit a small lamp in a niche. A single flame flickers against the plaster, casting the room in gold. Not bright, just enough to guide. You follow it toward the central courtyard, where a few other early risers move like ghosts across stone. And then, for a moment, everyone pauses. Because there it is, the first line of sunrise slicing over the distant rooftops, drawing a sharp golden edge across the highest dome. No one says anything. No one has to. This is why the buildings were built low in this quarter, to let the light arrive gently, to warm the earth without piercing it. The architecture doesn't challenge the sun. It greets it. Slowly, the light spills down into the courtyard, catching the tips of fig branches, reflecting off the glazed tiles inlaid near the fountain. A rooster calls from a few rooftops away, but it sounds muffled, muted by the city's spongy walls and soft layouts. You walk to the edge of the courtyard and sit beside the water. It's warmer now than the air, because even water, even stone, hold on to yesterday for a while longer. Someone appears with a metal ewer, tarnished, but still elegant. She pours water into a small bowl for the cat beside her, then pours some over her own hands and face. A quiet ritual, not religious exactly, but restorative. Part of waking up here isn't just about alertness. It's about recalibrating your body to the temperature of the day. You splash some water on your own face, and the night breaks away like clay under water. You're still cool, not cold, just balanced. The house around you is coming to life again, but slowly. No blaring alarms, no hiss of kettles or buzz of machines, just cloth being shaken out, baskets being lifted, slippers brushing across packed dirt. You rise and step outside into the outer alleys once more, curious to see how the city shifts at sunrise. It's different. Shadows stretch long again, but they point the other direction now, retreating toward the west as the sun pushes forward. The air is thick with smells of fresh bread, of wet clay, of goat hair ropes being handled in the market stalls. Vendors arrive with carts, not shouting, just setting up. A man stacks melons beside a shaded stall, placing them in a pyramid that angles away from direct sun. Nearby, a woman sprinkles water onto the stones in front of her doorway, darkening the ground. You know why now. Evaporative cooling, the oldest trick, the smartest one. The stones hiss softly under the touch of water. Then steam lifts upward, caught by the alley's design, whisked away by the wind that arrives precisely because that alley was built to catch it. You pass a baker's tandoor again. This time, the oven is already lit, its top sealed tight, its flue open. But the courtyard it sits in is still cool. You look around and spot the badger above, angled to pull heat away from the bakery's seating area. It's intentional contradiction. Fire in one corner, cool breeze in the next. No battle, just balance. You pause at a side door leading into a school. Children are arriving. Not rushed, not loud. They enter in loose pairs, some carrying slates, others no more than a reed pen. A teacher stands in the shade of a vine-draped archway, smiling with the patience of someone who's taught in heat and dust for decades. And there, above the school's entrance, you see something new. A series of ceramic jars embedded into the wall. You peer closer and realize they aren't containers. They're sound filters, a kind of passive acoustic system. The Persians once used such design not only to ventilate, but to guide the quality of sound through courtyards and halls. Some were built to carry the teacher's voice with more clarity. Others to quiet echoes, cooling and sound, linked by architecture. Historians debate the origins of these techniques. Were they Persian inventions, borrowed from older Mesopotamian temples? Were they widespread, or only found in academic and spiritual buildings? The answers don't matter as much when you're standing here, listening to the sound of silence sculpted on purpose. You leave the school behind, following the curve of the wall that was once just a shortcut but now feels like a breeze conductor. You follow your instincts, not a map, and find yourself back at the central square. The same one where you saw children playing by the Yakshal yesterday. Now it's quieter, still, but you sense the cold rising again. The ice dome has held through the night, sealed beneath earth and ash. The vent beside it still exhales that breath of winter. A woman sits beside it with a clay bowl of fruit, letting them cool before preparing breakfast. And then another scent drifts in a rosewater and saffron. Someone's making sharbat. You recognize the setup. A wide clay bowl, sunken slightly into the earth, where water is cooled with large chunks of stored ice. Syrup is added slowly, mixed with a ladle of carved wood. Mint leaves float on top. A few people gather to drink, no rush, no lines. This city doesn't do lines. It flows, it curls, pauses when needed, and so do you. You take a sip when your turn comes. It's cold enough to jolt your tongue, sweet enough to close your eyes. You sit on the edge of the pool nearby and let the rising sun dry your hands. And for the first time in your life, you begin to wonder something. Why did we ever stop building like this? The sun now owns the city. It hasn't reached its peak yet. That won't come for hours, but already the light is changing things. Where last night the city was all hush and shadow, now it's warmth and motion, albeit slow and measured. People don't rush here. Even when the sun rises quickly, the citizens of this ancient Persian town have learned how to resist the pace of heat. You rise from your seat by the sharbat stall and begin to move through the morning again. This time you're headed toward the southern quarter, a quieter stretch of town known for its artisans, woodworkers, glassblowers, calligraphers. But what draws you there isn't the crafts themselves. It's what's underneath them. This quarter is built over a different section of the Khanate, and you've heard it's one of the oldest. Some say it was dug before the town even had walls. Others believe it's part of a sacred line of underground channels aligned with the stars, not for astrology, but for water pressure and slope. You follow the alleyways southward, past walls that are slightly older, slightly rougher, with plaster that flakes in places to reveal generations of repairs beneath. The homes here seem more closed off. No balconies, no open loggias, and yet cooler. You pass a shaded doorway where an elderly man sits just inside, wrapped in light linen, his feet propped on a clay block. He nods to you, then gestures upward. You follow his gaze. Above his doorway, embedded deep in the brick, is a long, narrow slit angled diagonally like a wound stitched into the wall. You've seen dozens of them across the city but never noticed them this clearly. They're not just vents. There are knives designed to cut incoming wind into narrow jets that cool a single room without flooding the house with sand or noise. Built before electricity, before fans, before blueprints, and they still work. You smile and nod back to the man. He smiles too, as if to say, yes, it's old. It's better that way. You continue deeper into the quarter and finally arrive at a low, wide building, unmarked but unmistakable. It's a Khanate access station. Once, it would have been where engineers, surveyors, or sometimes mystics descended into the cool dark. Today, it serves more as a cooling sanctuary for the neighbors. You duck through the low entrance and step into the shade. Inside, the floor drops into a narrow stone trench, just wide enough to walk, just deep enough to step carefully. It curves gently downward, and you follow it with the reverence of someone descending into memory. The air grows colder and damper. You can smell mineral, earth, and something ancient you can't quite name. The channel walls are rounded and worn smooth. A few trickles of water cling to the sides, gliding downward like beads on glass. At a bend in the passage, you stop. There, you see it, a shaft of light cutting from above through a narrow opening, one of those vertical vents that rise from the surface like forgotten chimneys. It allows just enough light to show you the shimmer of water pooling below. This is where the canopy breathes, not just with water, but with air pressure. The coolness here isn't just from depth. It's from draft design, the way the city's architects used gradients in temperature and air density to coax wind through the earth. Hot air rises from buildings. That rising heat creates suction. The low, cool canopy responds by pulling air in. It's a conversation of temperatures. You crouch near the water, dip your fingers in. Ice cold. You stay there for a while, not to do anything, just to feel how everything connects. How rooftops talk to tunnels. How domes send messages down to dirt. How wind is caught and channeled like a river. Historians still debate how early this knowledge began. Some argue the proto-canopy systems existed in the 2nd millennium BCE, others say it began only during the Achaemenid Empire. Archaeologists still find fragments, curves of brick, inscriptions near shafts, wondering whether they were used to map flow or to mark ritual points. The truth is probably both. In this place, function and belief were never far apart. You rise again and climb the steps back into sunlight. The world feels louder now, brighter, but not oppressive, because you're not shocked by it anymore. Your body's adjusted. Your skin knows how to catch shade, how to listen to breeze, how to move at the pace of temperature. You walk toward a shaded bench outside a woodworker's shop. Inside, you hear the soft rasp of a file against cedar. A young man carves a pattern into a window shutter, geometric, tight, elegant. It's not just decoration. It's a cooling strategy. The pattern's let in wind, not sun. Air flows, light breaks. From the inside, it's dim and calm. From the outside, it glows. The lattice isn't about style. It's about thermodynamics disguised as art. You reach a small corner garden, one of many sunken plots in this part of town. The trees here are lower than the street, their roots digging straight into the canopy-fed soil. Birds hop along the clay edge. A gardener tends to basil and melons with a clay jug. No hose, no waste. You take a seat under a date palm, and you think again about the way modern life has tried to replace coolness with control. You think about thermostats and vents and insulation and all the things we do to feel comfortable, and how very little of it actually understands the air. This place, this desert city of wind towers, underground rivers, and sleeping courtyards, it doesn't try to dominate nature. It partners with it, and that partnership has outlived every empire that's tried to build with bricks but forgot about breeze. You take one more sip of cool water, and you rest. The afternoon unfolds with the slow majesty of a lion stretching in the shade. It doesn't leap. It doesn't roar. It just settles deeper into the heat, and the city follows suit. You're learning now not to resist it. There's no fighting midday in a desert city like this. Even the buildings know it. They shrink away from the sun, their faces turned inward, their windows shuttered, their breath held behind thick, shaded walls. The noise fades too. No hammering, no shouting, just the low hush of movement. Fabric being drawn, water being poured, sandals sliding across dusty floors. You've come to expect it now, this sacred silence of heat. But today, you decide to follow it into a part of the city that rarely sees visitors. The bathhouse quarter. Not a market, not a plaza, just a quiet maze of hammams. Some still in use, others crumbling with time. Their domes like sun-bleached turtle shells in the hot light. You can spot them easily now, these buildings of carefully controlled climate, because you've learned their language. Their domes are always pockmarked with glass lenses, small, round bulbs that let in daylight without heat. The lenses are arranged in patterns often geometric or symbolic. Stars, grids, spirals. You pick one hammam drawn by instinct and duck inside through a thick wooden door that's been opened just a crack. Inside, the air drops 10 degrees. Immediately, it wraps around you like a second skin, cool, heavy still. The entry chamber is long and arched, its floor made of glazed tiles that still glisten from this morning's cleaning. A young man sits on a stool, legs crossed, mending a pile of linen towels. He looks up, nods, then gestures toward the next room. You enter. This, you learn, is the sarbana, the warm room. Not hot, just enough to soothe muscles, to slow your heart rate. The ceiling curves high above you, every surface designed to prevent echoes. Even your footsteps feel muffled. Water trickles somewhere nearby, unseen but unmistakable. This hammam, like most in the city, sits directly above a branch of the canopy, and it uses the same system you've come to recognize. Cooled air from below, vented upward through narrow shafts. But there's a twist here, because heat is also welcomed, strategically. A furnace, stoked early in the morning, channels smoke through a hidden flue beneath the floors. The smoke never touches the room, but its warmth radiates upward, heating the floor just enough. The tiles beneath you are warm but not burning. The walls cooler, drawing heat away. It's like being inside a clay thermos, carefully tuned by centuries of trial. You sit on a low stone bench and close your eyes. This isn't like modern spas. There's no scent of eucalyptus, no steam machines, no music. Just the sound of breath, the soft drip of condensation, and the quiet thud of buckets. In the next room, someone preparing the garmkana. The hot room. You're not quite ready for that yet. Instead, you wander into a side chamber. It's dry here, still cool. A woman sits beside a shallow basin, grinding dried herbs into powder. Rose petals, sandalwood, lavender. She sprinkles the mix into a bowl of water and stirs slowly with her hand. The smell rises like memory. You realize that even scent here is a form of cooling. Not literal temperature, but emotional temperature. The mind relaxes. The body follows. Every sense is being softened one layer at a time. Historians still debate how early these bathhouses used both cold and heat in tandem. Whether the dual system of ventilation and underfloor heating began in Persia or arrived with Greek influence. Some believe it evolved in tandem, shaped by the needs of the climate rather than outside ideas. Either way, it works, and it works beautifully. You're invited into the garmkana next. A larger chamber, round like a womb, its ceiling high and windowless. Light filters in through the star-glass lenses in the dome, dappling the steam below. The air is thick now, humid, warm, but still not overwhelming. The furnace heat is channeled carefully, never allowed to collect too long in any one place. You lie down on a smooth stone platform and time disappears. There's no clock in here, just breath and water, and the strange sense that the earth has decided just for this hour to hold you gently. After a while, a bucket of cool water is poured over your back, and you nearly weep, not from shock, from balance. It's the perfect moment. Your skin warmed, your breath slowed, your body loose, and then that wave of cold clarity, sudden and kind. It doesn't just wash off sweat. It washes off centuries. You leave the hammam slowly, wrapped in a dry towel, hair damp, skin tingling with that feeling only old water and warm stone can give. Outside, the sun is still blazing, but now it feels smaller. Not a threat. Just part of the cycle. You pass another hammam on the way back through the quarter, this one older, its dome cracked in places, half swallowed by vines. And yet the structure still stands. The air around it still feels a few degrees cooler. The vent is still intact, because nothing here wastes design. Even broken, these structures function. You return to the main street just as the market begins to stir again. The siesta is ending. Vendors re-emerge, stretching, yawning, arranging their wares with sleepy grace. The soundscape rises slowly, calls, bells, rustling cloth. But it's still soft, controlled. Like the airflow in a wind tower, it knows where to go and when. You spot a young girl pouring water over the stones in front of her stall. A boy follows behind, fanning a tray of herbs with a palm frond. They're playing, not working, but the cooling effect is real. The water darkens the ground. The air rises just a little. A mother leans from a window above and tosses them a plum each. You walk past the courtyard you visited at sunrise, and it's transformed. The pool now reflects full sunlight, but the benches around it are shaded again, thanks to a simple canvas awning tied between two trees. Every object has shifted with the sun, but nothing has panicked, and that's what amazes you most. This city doesn't panic under pressure, plans for it. Even as the heat climbs, even as shadows shrink, the streets remain cool, not cold, but livable. Because the city doesn't try to escape the desert, it negotiates with it, and that negotiation continues every minute. You find yourself back near the old yakshal, which is now quiet. The children are gone. The vent is still breathing cold into the alley, but the dome is silent. You sit beside it, and you realize you're not just a visitor anymore. You're part of the system now. You've breathed its air. You've touched its water. You've learned its language. And you're starting to understand what the ancients knew all along. True comfort doesn't come from overpowering the environment. It comes from listening to it and building in response. The afternoon heat begins to soften as the sun arcs toward the horizon. You notice the shadows lengthening, creeping slowly back across the city like ink spilling over a parchment. The streets that felt too bright just an hour ago now cool to a gentle amber glow. You find yourself drawn again to the main square where the market has begun its evening stir, vendors setting out lamps, children chasing one another around fountains, the faint clinking of cups as tea begins to flow. This is the city's second wind, the time when life resumes its dance after a midday pause. You pause at a corner where a group of men are gathered, speaking in low tones. They're discussing the best way to keep their homes cool as summer approaches. One swears by thick curtains soaked in water. Another advocates for painted white walls to reflect sunlight. A third insists that planting trees in courtyards is the oldest and best method. You listen quietly, recognizing the age-old debate of how best to negotiate the desert's heat. These methods aren't random traditions but carefully evolved strategies. You remember that in ancient Persia, the use of mulberry and plane trees was widespread because their broad leaves provided shade without blocking airflow. Some historians argue these choices were driven by practical concerns. Others suggest there was also a spiritual dimension, that trees represented life and renewal, offering both physical and metaphysical cooling. The conversation drifts to the importance of water features. A man describes the sound of fountains as a natural air conditioner, cooling the air through evaporation and filling the space with tranquility. You watch the nearby fountain bubble, its water catching the fading light. You realize how the sound of flowing water isn't just pleasant. It lowers the perceived temperature of a space, calming both mind and body. This is part of the sensory design that the city's architects mastered, not just cooling with bricks and water but with sound and scent. You inhale deeply. The air smells faintly of mint and dried rose petals. Nearby, a woman sells bundles of fresh herbs, sage, lavender, thyme, known not only for their aroma but also for their cooling effect when scattered in living spaces. You follow the scent trail to a small shop tucked behind the market stalls. Inside, an elderly woman is mixing a paste from ground herbs and clay. She explains, without words, that this natural mixture, applied to walls and floors, helps regulate temperature by absorbing heat during the day and releasing it slowly at night. It's a living insulation. You remember reading about this technique called sarouj, a traditional waterproof plaster made from lime, clay, ash, and goat hair. It's flexible, breathable, and remarkably effective against heat. You marvel at the fact that these ancient materials, so simple and organic, outperform many modern synthetic insulators. Outside, the sky shifts from amber to a soft lavender. The city's wind towers, those silent sentinels, begin to stir again as the evening breeze picks up. You watch one in particular, a tall, slender structure with 4 open vents facing the cardinal directions. It's designed to catch wind no matter which way it blows, funneling the cool air down into the home's inner chambers. Historians still debate how widespread these badgers were across the Persian Empire. Some suggest they were exclusive to wealthy homes, while others argue they were common in entire neighborhoods. Regardless, their presence shows a deep understanding of passive cooling long before electricity. You follow the airflow as it spirals down into a nearby courtyard. The air feels cooler here, more alive. Children play near a shallow pool, their laughter light and unfettered by heat. You sit nearby on a stone bench, feeling the gradual cooling of your skin. The day is ending, but the city's life is just beginning. You realize that the cooling techniques you've witnessed, mud bricks, wind towers, cannons, water features, vegetation, plaster, are all part of an integrated system. Each element supports the others in a delicate balance. No one part dominates. No one part works alone. It's a cooperative dance with nature. You close your eyes for a moment and breathe deeply. You can almost hear the city exhaling. As the stars begin to peek through the deepening sky, you feel a profound calm settle over you. This city doesn't just survive the desert. It thrives because it listens, because it respects, because it builds for the future, not by fighting nature but by partnering with it. And now, so do you. Night deepens once more, folding the city into a cool, dark embrace. You find yourself wandering the quieter streets, those away from the market's late chatter and the fading light. Here, the air feels softer, more intimate. The stone beneath your feet has cooled enough to rest on without burning your soles, and the breeze whispers secrets only a night-trained ear can catch. As you pass a cluster of small homes, you notice an unusual sight. Clay jars perched on narrow ledges, each with a small hole facing the street. Curious, you approach and discover they are part of a clever cooling technique, porous pottery water jars, or sherzkhana as some call them. Filled with water, these jars cool the air through evaporation, much like the larger Yakshal ice pits but on a micro scale. The breeze passes over the wet clay, cools down, and seeps gently inside the rooms. A woman inside one of the homes is placing fresh herbs into her jar, infusing the air with a light fragrance of mint and thyme. You realize this isn't just about temperature, it's about sensory comfort, a total environment designed to soothe body and mind. This small-scale evaporation technique complements the larger systems you've seen, demonstrating how Persian cooling methods were layered and adaptive. Moving on, you spot the faint glow of lantern light coming from a narrow alley. Drawn by curiosity, you slip inside and find yourself in a hidden courtyard. the kind of secret oasis that feels like it's been preserved for centuries. A small group is gathered here, seated on woven mats beneath a trellis heavy with grapevines. A man is playing a ney, a reed flute whose breathy notes blend with the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional splash of water from a nearby basin. You sit quietly at the edge, letting the music wash over you. The sound itself seems to cool the air, pulling you deeper into the city's unique rhythm. Historians debate whether Persian music traditions were designed with climate in mind, if certain instruments and melodies were chosen to soothe not just the spirit but the body in hot weather. Some scholars argue this idea is romanticized. Others suggest the connection is very real, pointing to ancient texts describing music's role in calming fever and heatstroke. You decide it doesn't matter. The effect is undeniable. The music, the water, the night air, they blend seamlessly into a sensory experience that transcends time. As the melody fades, you rise and continue exploring. You pass the ruins of an old bazaar hall, its arches crumbled but still majestic. Vines climb the broken walls, and moonlight filters through the gaps. Despite the decay, you notice traces of the ancient cooling courtyards within, pools and shaded nooks arranged to promote air circulation. Even in ruin, the architecture speaks. You feel the layers of history beneath your feet, the echoes of countless lives who built, lived, and dreamed here. The city's cooling secrets weren't just practical. They were cultural, spiritual, and deeply personal. You pause by a well, its stone rim smooth from generations of hands. You dip your fingers into the cool water, letting it trickle slowly over your skin. You think about how water is life here, how air is a treasure, how cooling is a gift earned through patience and respect. As you walk back toward your resting place, the wind picks up again, playful and light. It threads through the badgers, slides across the rooftops, and drifts into the open windows. You lie down, feeling the cool breath of the city once more. You know tomorrow will bring heat again, but you also know this city will be ready, because it's built on understanding, built on balance, built on the gentle art of cooling without force. And now, so are you. Dawn whispers its arrival, soft and slow, as you awaken once more to the city's embrace. The air carries a familiar chill, not the sharpness of night, but the gentle coolness of early morning, wrapped in promise. You rise quietly, slipping into the rhythms you now know, the slow, measured steps of a city that breathes through its walls. Today, you decide to explore the outer gardens, those living edges where nature and architecture merge. You walk past clusters of date palms and fig trees, their leaves whispering secrets in the morning breeze. Between them, narrow water channels trickle, fed by Canet springs, weaving a shimmering thread through the greenery. These gardens are more than decoration. They are a living, breathing part of the city's cooling system. You watch as sunlight filters through the leaves, casting playful patterns on the stone pathways. The water in the channels moves deliberately, cooled underground before it surfaces to scatter coolness into the air. Birds flit among the branches, their songs adding a delicate soundtrack to the morning's calm. You pause by a small pavilion, shaded and cool, where a gardener tends to beds of aromatic herbs, mint, lavender, sage. She offers you a sprig of mint, and as you inhale its crisp scent, you realize again how cooling in this city is a multisensory experience. Not just air and water, but scent and sound, touch and shadow. You continue wandering, noticing how the garden's layout is designed to channel breeze through the trees and over the water. The result is a natural air conditioner, crafted through generations of observation and care. You step into a small courtyard framed by mud brick walls, where a fountain bubbles quietly. The water's surface shimmers with reflected sunlight, and you lean over to touch it, feeling the soothing coolness ripple through your fingers. Nearby, you spot a series of small ceramic jars embedded in the wall. They're part of an ancient humidification system, releasing moisture slowly into the dry air. You think about how clever these layered techniques are, how every element, from water to plant to clay, works in harmony. Historians debate whether these gardens served only a practical cooling function or also held symbolic meaning, representing paradise on earth, a place of respite and renewal. Whatever the case, it's clear the gardens are central to life here. You find a quiet bench and sit, watching sunlight dance on leaves and water. The air feels alive, soft, cool, and fragrant. You close your eyes and breathe deeply. The city's ancient cooling secrets have become your own. You feel them in your bones, in the steady rhythm of your breath, in the calm that settles over your mind. And as the sun climbs higher, warming the earth but never overwhelming, you know that this balance, this partnership between people and nature, is a gift born of patience, knowledge, and respect. You rise from the bench, ready to carry the gift with you. Because cooling here isn't just a physical comfort, it's a way of being. The city holds its breath as twilight descends. You wander through familiar streets, now painted in soft purple and gold, the last warmth of the day fading into gentle coolness. Tonight, you seek the quiet corners, those hidden places where the city's cooling magic feels most intimate. You find yourself drawn to a narrow alley lined with small, domed houses. Each roof bears a small wind catcher, their vents angled to capture even the faintest breeze. You pause beneath one and watch as the air spirals down inside, stirring the coolness trapped within thick mud brick walls. Inside one home, a family prepares for the evening meal. The courtyard is alive with lantern light and the scent of spices. Water pots sit in shaded niches, their surfaces beaded with condensation, a subtle promise of coolness. You remember the yakshal, the ancient ice pit you visited days ago, and the countless ways its chill spreads through the city, even now. As night deepens, the city slows. Fewer footsteps, softer voices. The wind shifts direction, carrying the scent of jasmine and freshly ground spices. You settle on a rooftop wrapped in a light shawl. The stars emerge overhead, scattered like tiny lamps. Below, the city's breath rises, warm air escaping from vents, mingling with the cool night wind. You reflect on the journey, how this ancient city, built of mud and stone and water, has taught you the art of cooling without force. You think of the architects who designed every wall, every vent, every pool to work in harmony. You think of the cannon builders who tunneled beneath the earth to bring life-sustaining water and cool air. You think of the families who lived and thrived here, their lives shaped by heat and wind and shadow. Historians still argue whether these cooling methods influenced later architectural traditions across the world or if they were unique to this region. But for you, the lesson is clear. True comfort isn't about conquering nature. It's about listening, adapting, and respecting. As you lie back and gaze at the sky, the soft hum of the city's breath lulls you. You feel connected to the earth, to the air, to the countless lives that made this place their home. And as sleep begins to claim you, you carry with you the quiet wisdom of a city that knows how to cool not just the body, but the soul. End of script. Sweet dreams.